Go back. We'll call the June 3rd budget work session of the Macon County Board of Commissioners to order. I'd like to welcome everyone in attendance, and I assure you we will make time to hear all of you this evening. This is, again, I will reiterate, this is our first work session since it's been given the county manager's recommended budget. So we're here to listen, gain evidence. This is the first time we as commissioners have had the opportunity to hash this out among ourselves. And I know there's going to be some questions for our county manager. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions for some of you here in attendance. And I'm sure Lori, finance director, is going to have several answers for us as well. So I appreciate all of you being here. So with that being said, we're going to try and get through this as quickly as possible. I know we all want to make it home for dinner and be with our families. So let's start off with our fire department budget discussions. I believe we have two departments that are asking for a tax increase for this year. Let's go in alphabetical order. We'll start with Burningtown first. So. Welcome, Mr. Schuler, welcome. Thank you all. Just to give a little background to those in attendance here. Burningtown's current rate per thousand is .1056. They're asking to go to .112, which is approximately a 5% increase, roughly. And I think it's about $12,000 annually. So I'll let you do your presentation, but I've already got questions off that.
All right.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Michael Schuler. I'm the Chief of Burningtown Fire Department. Today I come before you not only as the Chief of the Fire Department, but also a community member of Burningtown-Iotla. Before you in your booklets, you have our budget request for the fiscal year 21 to 22. I've asked for a $12,000 increase from, like Mr. Tate said, from .1056 to .1112. As a homeowner myself in Burningtown-Iotla, I don't like to see an increase in my taxes, but I do know as a fire chief that sometimes it's necessary. Do I want to see an increase? No. I know how hard it is to survive these days on the pennies we make. But what people don't understand and what people don't see is the cost for anything in public safety these days. Sometimes they're double or tripled in value just because you put fire, EMS, or law enforcement in front of it. What they don't see is the PPE or personal protection equipment we have has a life cycle on it. Bunker gear has a 10-year life cycle and it has to be changed out. Medical supplies in the last 3 to 4 months went from $18 and some cents for a box of medical gloves to $33 a box 2 weeks ago. EpiPens. Our department, or one of the only fire departments in Macon County that carry EpiPens because we're so far out. In the last 3 years, we've saved 3 lives because of the EpiPens. Adult EpiPens are $693 a piece for us. Child EpiPens are $423 a piece for us. This time last year, fuel prices, we were paying $1.80 a gallon for diesel. We have our own diesel tank. Last week, we paid $3.10 a gallon. And like before, like I said, anything in public safety has an expiration date on it. The EpiPens included, they're good for 1 year. If we do not use them, we have to dispose of them and get new ones. If anybody has any questions or anything, feel free to ask. I'll be more than glad to try to answer them for you.
Well, I'll start. Chief Schuler, appreciate what y'all do. And of course, I don't think that this board doesn't support all of our volunteer fire departments of 110%, and we do our best to do so. I've got to ask from a financial perspective though, $12,000 is such a minimal increase overall. I mean, I understand most houses might only increase their taxes $1, some is going to be more, but can you not find that in your budget? not come with just a 12,000 increase?
Last year
I
we
can't
had,
help but ask that.
I understand that. Last year we done 3 fundraisers. This year we had 4 planned, we've already done 1.
I understand. I didn't think about that, about the extra money that you
Right.
get from those because of COVID. You probably weren't able to hit those. So.
Right, we're not. The reason I'm asking for the increase is just to cover the fuel, the cost of EpiPens went up and stuff like that. Everything else, we can pretty much cover with the budget we have. I wouldn't be asking for the $12,000
If you weren't that tight.
if we weren't that tight with the increase, maintenance fees and stuff like that. For a engine, to get the oil changed, and the engine is a pumper tanker, it's $723 just for an oil change this year. And that's something, the inflation that we wasn't counting on in the budget from last year is the inflation and with everything else with COVID going on.
Sure.
And I don't want to go more higher than that because I know how it is to pinch pennies and live paycheck to paycheck, especially in our community. I mean, we see it. We've got a lot of people that's on Social Security and disability and stuff.
How are
like
you
that.
doing overall with your truck payments, your building payments, or any of those? I mean, I know you're building, you've got a new one, so it won't be coming
Right.
off anytime soon. Do you have any trucks coming off?
We have 1 truck
Budgets.
coming off in October, correct?
Good.
And other than that, we have only 1 more truck and then the building itself, and that's it.
Good.
Chief Sheila, are you still having to maintain the building at Davies Creek too, right?
That's correct, yes.
Are they, I know you're having to put some monies in it just because of the age of the building. Do you happen to know about how much maintenance and upkeep on that is, on that building?
We, for propane wise in the winter, which because of the trucks are parked there and stuff, it's about $200 a month on propane in the winter, and then electrical bill. Besides that, we do all maintain everything else. We've had a lot of people donate some money for fixes of the roof and siding and stuff like that, and we've been pretty lucky.
Because that building's getting some real age on it
It is.
now, so you don't know when you might be a big one of them big pine trees go through the middle of it, might be bad now.
I'm trying to put together right now a 6-year plan, and that includes that building down there. It's not gonna be nothing drastic, but we're gonna have to start thinking about, replacing the roof and stuff like that.
And another benefit coming up a week from Saturday.
That's correct. Yeah, that'll be our second
Spread
benefit.
that, tell them, get that in the newspaper. Be sure and write that down.
And then we've got we sponsor a softball tournament in August, and then our chili drive-through dinner in October, so. But it's not like we're trying not to waste money and stuff, and we're not. We've come up with different ways. COVID threw a curveball for us, and what used to be dine-in barbecue and dine-in chili dinners turned into drive through the bay and pick it up and see you next year. We can't talk to you and stuff like that. So it's I know it's threw a curveball to all the volunteer departments around here.
Commissioner Shields, Commissioner Higdon, go ahead. Commissioner
I've got a simple question.
Yes, sir.
I've got a lot of large trucks as well. I mean, $700 for an oil change. Do you guys change your oil? Can we take advantage of other county maintenance?
We cannot change oil ourselves. Anything we do, it has to be by a certified emergency service mechanic, which that's the reason we use Carolina Cat. They have emergency service mechanics. If we were to change it ourselves and something happened to that truck and it caused somebody injury, then our insurance will not cover nothing.
I mean, that's just hard to swallow, but I just wondered if we can't share other county, maintenance.
The
Just
chiefs,
for routine maintenance.
Right.
I understand working on ladders and pumps and, all the real technical.
right. We had a chiefs meeting a couple of months ago, and that's something all the chiefs had mentioned was maybe getting somebody certified in county maintenance or getting a countywide contract
Countywide,
with
yeah.
Carolina Cat or Quality Auto or something like that. And we're getting prices together. And Terry, when's the next chiefs meeting?
Be the next board.
That's when we'll have everything together, and the chiefs will go from there.
Commissioner Higdon.
And I'll share your thoughts about everybody having a hard time right now. This inflation is just, I've spent the day just trying to round up products for my business that I'm flabbergasted at the cost of everything. The cost that hits you have hit the other 11 departments also.
Correct.
And to have a tax increase. The thing I don't like about the way these budgets are presented or requested, it doesn't reflect your reserve funds,
Right now in the emergency reserve fund, we have $40,000 in case anything happens to any of the trucks. If an engine goes out or something like that, we have to replace a whole engine or anything like that. And then we have a $20,000 in case anything happens to the old building, or we have to buy a spare pair of a chainsaw or something like that, something that we need for inspections or ISO or anything like that. So we have a total of $60,000 in the emergency reserve fund.
And
We
that's
do not
full. I
touch.
mean, you've got the 60K in there now.
Yes, that's correct.
Is there any guidance on guidelines on what percent? I know we as a county, state recommends we keep, 1 month's.
When I was handed over, took over as chief, nobody told me anything about any guidance on keeping any reserve funds. That's something that, even when I was assistant chief for the prior 6 years, it's something that we have always kept in there and did not touch.
It's pretty good. It's a pretty good little fund though. You've got the 250, 230, what's your budget? 230, much is it, Rory? 235, $237,000.
$236,025 was last year's budget.
Okay. Okay, thank you, sir.
Any further questions, Commissioner Shields? No, sir. Anybody else?
Thank you for your time, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Ms. Baker.
We want to handle these individually as we head along to give Lori some direction, or Mr. Manager, I'm looking for direction here.
I think we better wait just to see where we're at the end of the day.
Okay, good enough. There, Otto, welcome, Chief Rollator.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, commissioners. Come before you today to ask for a budget increase for the Otto Fire and Rescue for the sole purpose of a new main station. We've been planning this for many years as we just purchased property, drilled a well, have a septic permit on file, and had some of the grading work done, all without any budget increase. Also in preparation, we paid off our substation, trying to offset any increase to the budget. In 2002, we built an addition on the same property as what we have our main station on now, trying to increase the longevity of that building. It has fully served its purpose. We house 6 apparatus in the bay areas. We also built a substation to house 3 more apparatus to allow us to extend our coverage and bring more structures into the insurance rated 5 and 6 mile districts. In 2003, we dropped to a class 7 insurance rating, and then in 2011, we dropped to a class 6, and then again in 2020, we dropped to a class 4. With these reductions, property owners save between $100 and $200 decrease on their insurance premiums annually, and we have the 4th largest district and the 3rd highest population in Macon County. We still have areas that are not covered inside of our 6 mile district and are in process with Raymer County to cover some of those areas to give citizens a better insurance rate. We strive to provide the highest quality service while trying to keep costs to the taxpayers as low as possible. The national average for fire protection is between $170 to $180 per household. Our average cost before the proposed increase is $98 per structure. With the proposed increase, it would be an average of $206 a structure. The request will increase the district millage rate from a .0684 to a .1224, which is a .0544 difference. Still not the highest millage rate in the county. We would also like for you to keep in mind that Buncombe County has an average millage rate of .1274 for fire protection for the same services that Macon County Fire Departments provide. The Macon County average with the Otto increase is .0749. In 2019, we ran 528 calls for service and then 485 in 2020. The slight reduction is due to the state COVID response protocols in which fire departments did not respond to any COVID-related calls through most of the year. With the 2020 calls, that brings our cost per call to $1,235 a call. With the increased number of calls to service, we are in dire need of a station to house our growing equipment, apparatus, and personnel. As of now, we had to purchase an outside storage building to house our command post and other portable equipment as we are out of room in our current station. Due to the outdated old section of the main station, we cannot fit most of the newer apparatus due to the 10-foot bay doors, which means we have to strategically place all of our apparatus. We have 3 trucks that will not fit in the building at all. Unfortunately, with the decreasing number of volunteers and the increase of truck size, this station will not serve us much longer into the future. In 2017, the Macon County Fire Protection Study, it is recommended that main stations have a 40-year lifespan. Our station was built in 1980, and also in that same study, 19% of the citizens think that they're getting a bargain on fire tax or would pay a higher tax for better service. Also had a lot of people want more career staffing at every fire department in Macon County. More issues we're facing with the current station is there are not adequate storage for equipment or supplies. Roofs on both buildings leak and need attention. During heavy rainstorms, water runs into the bay areas of both buildings, causing us to relocate the equipment stored in those areas. We do not own any of the buildings on the property where the main station is located. We do hold a long-term lease on the area we occupy. Also have no area to house overnight stays, whether it be paid staff or volunteers for special related events. Neither building will meet building code to offer housing without major renovation and the addition of a sprinkler system. We do realize this is a hefty increase, and we have diligently worked to keep our budget low in previous years by the use of grants and trying to find the best equipment for the best rate possible. We also did not pay volunteers until we received a SAFER grant through FEMA for recruitment and retention. We've received $441,000 in grants in the last 8 years. We've also made several cuts to the building plan, talked with Macon County EMS about renting space, talked to numerous banks to help us offset some of the annual payment of the building. This station is the future for the southern end of Macon County, as it will meet the need to house fire and rescue protection for many years to come, without any need of any renovation. It will be able to house up to 8 firefighters overnight at any given time, be able to house all the apparatus needed in the heated bay area, and allow plenty of storage for all equipment. Also provide a workout room and proper areas for decon and sleeping quarters. In the design of the station, we planned it for the future. This decision to do this and ask for this increase did not come easy, as I'm sure yours won't either. We all live in the Otto community and will affect our tax rates as well. We are looking into the possibility of building insurance companies, get a better donation program, and more grants to offset any further budget increases. We did hold 2 public hearings on budget increase with 1 person attending each one. Both parties were in favor. We did a community newsletter and had positive response for the increase. And I did bring our architect with us, Odell Thompson, for any questions on the building. Is there anything on that part that y'all would like? And I have the plans or pictures if y'all would like to see those.
How many square feet?
Under roof, we got 16,401 square feet.
Heated?
Nope.
How much heated?
Heated, let's see, 5,085 square feet are sprinkled and 2,332 are unsprinkled. And then we've got 6,396 of truck beds.
Say that last number again. I wasn't hearing.
6,326 square feet of truck beds. Which, yeah, they'll be heated, but it's different.
How many trucks did you say you have? How many engines do you have?
How many engines?
Trucks?
Right now we have 11.
Chief Roller, please help me to refresh my memory. I know you've been here before, and it seems like we might have declined the tax increase or something.
Last year.
Was that last year?
Last year.
Okay. I know, because I remember seeing this prior.
The same building last year when we come to propose it was $3.7 million.
And
This year it's
time
5.4.
Well, it depends on if you're including the fee, architectural fees or not, the engineering and architectural fee. The construction budget is 5.2.
5.2. Increase in the building.
We're basically seeing a 50% increase.
Terry, what happens to the old building we're in now?
That's actually part of that. So when we talked to the banks, the annual loan payment was going to be about $304,000 a year. And actually what we're requesting right now is $265,000 a year because we're gonna take and rent that old space of the building, hopefully rent it out. I know EMS is looking at it. We'll rent it to them and use that money to offset some of the building payment as well.
So what happens to the Otto community building?
It stays there, stays the same.
What about the roof that's leaking now?
It's not our building.
So it's up to them to do all that.
They own it.
Y'all don't contribute to their insurance or nothing
No.
on that building, you just use the building?
We use the building and we pay renter's insurance. We did try to offer a
But
deal to
nothing
them.
the community club?
Huh?
You don't pay nothing to the community club?
We rent the building and we pay our part of the maintenance. We did offer a deal to them to take over the property and take over all the maintenance of the property, and they've yet to come back with an answer.
No, they can't, they have no money. They're just like everybody else. But the roof's gotta be repaired. Boston West is getting ready to put a lot of equipment in that building.
I also talked to Boston West about renting space in this new station for them to put their equipment.
And they gotta have a roof, he can't be leaking on that stuff, I wouldn't think.
I wouldn't think so either. I wouldn't want my stuff getting
No.
rained on.
So Boston West is going to use repurposing.
That's part of the community club. That's nothing, yeah, that's their building.
Yeah, we've been talked to them about it.
Chief Later, y'all have been skimming by with one of the lower tax rates in the county for several years. I know you were here last year for one. Do you feel like you, and I don't disagree with the fact that y'all need a tax increase, do you feel like you can't, you have to go with this massive of one? I mean, that's almost a, I mean, I haven't looked at it just off the top of my head, that's almost an 80% tax. I mean, that's tremendous.
It's huge.
Can you not swing it with, I mean, I understand we declined you last year, but can you not swing it with a more minimal tax rate to swing through? Are you expecting once you get this paid for, you're gonna decrease your tax rate, which is
Once this is
unheard of,
paid
I
for,
can
we
tell
could
you
take
that's
and
not
drop
gonna
it down, but I mean, that's 20, 30 years in the future once this payment's paid off. Unfortunately, that is the full price, well, it's not even the full price of the loan payment. We're taking our donation line item and we're taking $15,000 out of our budget right now that we've took out of it to help pay this annual payment, plus whatever we get from rent from the station we're in now.
Sure.
To pay for that. And then we also have $100,000 set over in a building fund right now that we're going to use to offset the overall cost. So hopefully that fee will pay the architect fees and so on and so forth, so it'll just be the $3.2 million. As of right now, a bank will only do on a commercial building 20-year loan. We're trying to, we're working with a bank right now, they're looking at doing a 30-year loan, which will bring that rate on down to get it to where we can manage it.
Gosh. Okay. You mentioned you'd had two public comments. Did you advertise those in the paper?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Both of them was advertised in the paper.
Okay.
Terry, this is the property right on the right before you, where the old
For those
welding
schools.
shop was?
Yes, sir. Right there, the old welding shop, same property. It's all tied in. Yes, sir.
And he looks like you got plenty of room. I know there's a big bank behind it, but you do have room for expansion
Yes, sir.
in the future if needed, right?
Hopefully with that, there'll be no expansion needed. It's there. Because that was what we didn't want to get into, is we ran into it with our main station now, is it didn't service life and we had that go and ask for an increase to do an addition. We don't want to do that halfway through this. We want it all to be there. And
You good on firemen, Terry?
we have 31 members right now, 3 juniors and
Wow.
2 career staff.
One.
Good job. Good job. Any further questions, Commissioner Higdon?
Oh, I appreciate you coming again. Last year, I thought it was more than 3.
It's 3.7 last year, yes, sir.
And I talked, I think, your architect about scaling down some, because that's a big lick, and you know where you live.
I agree.
You know,
It's a lot.
That's,
Unfortunately, from the trend from last year to this year, it ain't getting no cheaper either, so.
and that runs out about, what, $337 a square foot?
Yes, sir.
354 actually.
354?
The prices last year was $225 to $250 a square foot.
And I mean, you're cramped, you know, what do you do, man? It's just, and
And if you look at the plan, we also moved our outside storage building down there too to help still put stuff outside and not add room to.
It's a tough call.
I don't argue that. That's why y'all make
You know,
it.
my stance on taxes, man, it's just, like you said, or like White said, fuel's going up over $1 a gallon. And you guys have to run off of that, live off of that. We do too, all of us business, but you know, we're suffering the same things. And the uncertainty with the federal tax codes coming out is just absolutely mind-boggling. And to raise just Otto's taxes, you know, a nickel.
And you know, and not that this makes for a hill of beans, but Highland Station was over $4 million. But with their overall district evaluation, their tax rate wasn't as high to build the same quality station.
Yeah. And you mentioned there, you know, and I trying to tailor and design these things for sleeping quarters and,
Something we gotta have.
well, but we've got to realize that there is no way that Macon County residents can afford 12 full-time fire departments in Macon County.
I agree, and I'm not arguing with you, but can they afford no fire protection? I've got 12 members right now that have their 20-year service, could walk out the door tonight when I get there for fire meeting.
Well, how are
Retired,
sleeping
paid in
quarters
full.
going to, how are you going to use sleeping quarters to recruit new firemen?
Well, some people use what they call a community live-in program. They let people that's going to college, like these people are coming in to go into park service at SCC and so on, and other classes, they let them live there rent-free to run calls.
Interesting concept, I hadn't heard that.
It's pretty big down on the eastern part of the state, around Charlotte, places where there's bigger schools, people come in to go to college. They let the college students live there rent-free and run calls for them.
But you agree that we could not, the residents could not afford 12 fully staffed fire departments?
I agree, but it's something we need to look at affording, because it's coming, and you need to look at it pretty quick. I'd say within the next 5 to 6 years, because there's no more coming through the door. You don't have volunteers coming through the door. People don't have time.
Different generation turn, it's still the best deal this county's got,
If you-
volunteer firemen.
I'm not arguing. You look
Oh,
at the study in 2017, 70% of the people surveyed said they would not volunteer because they didn't have time.
Yeah.
Different time.
And that was in 2017. That was 4 years ago.
And there'll have to be options looked at to maintain rural fire departments. Yeah, I don't,
What-
that's an interesting concept. I've not heard that. But just to sit here and blanket say, hey, we're gonna have 12 full-time, full-staffed or whatever departments, that's a tough lick. I mean, that may be the end game. I don't know. But I think we certainly need to discuss it. But there's never a good time for a tax increase in my mind. I'm not the full board, but particularly this is not a good time at all. Last year wasn't either. You keep hearing the same thing when you come. And
We'll keep coming.
Huh?
We'll keep coming. You'll see my smiling face every year.
Well, I'm impressed with you young gentlemen that are committed to serving your community. I tried it for a few years and I was too busy.
And see, even myself, I've been at it since '98, so I could actually retire within the next year or two.
I'll say a few things. So I live
Thank you,
in,
Terry.
Yes, sir.
I live in Otto, and I do appreciate more than what you guys, men and women, more than what you realize what you do for us. I mean, it's I don't have the time again, and you guys put your life on the line for us every day. The number, I mean, the $5 million number is what's really intimidating. You know, like there's no doubt, as Mr. Tate says, you need, you know, better facilities. But, you know, we just built that metal structure on 441.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I'm not scared to tell you it was a couple of years ago, but we built 24 feet high. It's a fraction the size of this. We came in at $225,000. We have 3 rooms, 2 bathrooms, a mezzanine. You know, so I think we just kind of need to scale back to where maybe we don't have all the bells and whistles and all. Like, there's no doubt you need it, but you know, I heard you reference Asheville and Highlands. I mean, this is Otto. I'm not saying they're any you know, better or worse. I'm saying we don't have the population and the funding. So I think we need something. This is intimidating. But
That's actually on the lower end. We did not put a lot of bells and whistles into that. That's not your high dollar sheetrock and so on and so forth and brick. 4-lay like Highland stations or Asheville stations. That's actually a metal building, metal frame building, red iron. And they're putting insulated panels on the outside where it's metal on the outside, insulation in between, metal on the inside, and that's what'll go up.
I mean, could
It's
you-
not high dollar.
Just asking, I'm not a contractor, but is there a way to kind of break this down, maybe with a breezeway where you can stay under, is it 5,000 square feet to not have to have sprinkler systems?
We did. We
All
put
the
in
crazy.
Yeah, we put in firewalls. The only area that's sprinkled is the living quarters to cut down on the cost of the sprinkler system. Part of the problem with the sprinkler system is we're not tied into city water. You're required by building code, if they're sleeping there, if it's living quarters, you have to have that. So we had to put in pumps and tanks and all that to be able to accommodate that sprinkler system. Where if we did have city water or public water out there, we wouldn't have to put all that in. But we did in
Yeah.
the bay areas, we put in firewalls where we don't have to sprinkle that. It's
Yeah.
part of living in a rural community.
So like I said, I'd be happy to, kind of come to a meeting and talk to you guys. I want to see this number. This is just a little much for me.
And like I said, it was 3.7 last year. I can't help the cost of building increase, that's materials.
Have you had actual contractors look at it and give you a quote
Yes,
Yeah, actually, one from Georgia.
recent?
yes.
I talked to one and he said that his metal building, he sells metal buildings for a living. And he said that his cost since January went up 43% just on the metal building itself. He recommended, we done a 25% increase at the first redo. After talking to him, he recommended that we do at least another 20 to 25% because he had no clue where building materials were going.
Terry, I believe from the information you've got here, you all have involved your community, and they seem to be in support
Yes, sir.
of what you're asking for here.
Out of the newsletter we sent back, there was only 2 negative comments for it. One was opposed because it didn't help her on Mulberry, where she lived at, but we're looking at striking a deal with Rayburn County to get them covered to where they're in a 6-mile district to help them on their insurance rates.
So what I'm reading here, your community that you serve is in support of what you're presenting here.
For the most part, yes, sir, from what we've gathered back.
Thank you.
Most of it was just non-responses, but from what we got back, they was positives. Yes, sir.
That community's getting broadband, it's going to increase more business-wise and homes.
Yes, sir.
It's, appreciate all your work
Thank you.
and your leadership.
And we have to be careful, just for the board and for just knowing a little bit about it, that yes, you can come in here and try to cut that bill down to X amount of dollars and say we'll add on to it later. That's like buying a car with no fenders. You're going to put fenders on it.
That's
You're
right.
going to have to expand it. And it costs a whole lot more the second go around. What's it going to cost 4 years from now?
Yep.
That's what you have to think about. And as this county continues to grow, and it will, that community especially,
Well, I mean,
every piece of land down there sold, I reckon, pretty close. So, so it's going to expand, Terry, and your call volume. Look at your call volume. I looked at your call volume.
it's went up tremendously.
Yeah, even during COVID. And most of the calls, Warren will tell you that during COVID, a lot of the calls went down.
Ours actually increased.
Yours increased. So that's what it's all about. When they pick up that phone, dial 911 looking for Otto Fire Department, have you ever had anybody say, my tax rate's too high, don't come?
No, sir.
Never heard a word of that.
And with that being said too, a lot of people that move here from different locations, they expect the same level of service that they got.
Well, they got better during the ad, guaranteed.
So we still have to maintain a level of standardization service across the board that they receive anywhere.
What grade are you in, Snap?
4.
Great.
Good job of that. Any further questions? Josh, if you'd like to catch up with him, I'll do so.
Yes, sir. So we have shared a couple emails and.
Yes, sir.
I spoke with the gentleman today from Department. Got your number as well from him. So,
Okay.
anytime you have a meeting, I'd love to be there and go through, more in depth, and I'd be happy to bring more to the board, just kind of show the efforts that we're taking and more of the scale of that building. But, like I said, 5 point something, and I understand it's crazy where this world's going right now, but
I agree.
And thank you for what you do. and what the department
Appreciate
does.
y'all's time. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
All right, I see you for North Carolina Forest Service here. Would y'all like to? Warren, did you have any comments on these? You good?
Sure. Just
Sorry, just
real
1
briefly.
second.
The two things that y'all mentioned, obviously, were in that fire study, the combined maintenance contract with an outside agency or using the county maintenance staff. So that's something that we looked at in 17, that was the part of the steps we were looking at trying to fix. So that's something that, like he mentioned, is on our radar to try and see if we can do something with. I do agree with Terry, his building's one of the oldest ones that's out there, so that's why we identified it back then between them and Clark Chapel. Those two of the oldest buildings. They were the first two rural fire departments in Macon County. So they obviously have the oldest buildings, so they hit that nail on the head. You heard him mention EMS. One of the things that we looked at was, particularly when the Highlands Road was shut down with maintenance, we moved the truck down to Otto during the daytime. And we did that so when the truck in Highlands, when our ambulance in Highlands has a call, we chase it with a truck from Franklin to make sure that our availability is still there if the next person picks up the phone and calls 911. So we run this constant circle between Franklin and Highlands and Franklin and Nantahala. And what we found was that when we moved that truck to Otto, number one, we helped Mulberry, Wallaby Gap, those places down there that are hard to get to, and in some cases we drive fast, Raven County EMS, to get to some of those places. So usually we'll send them instead of us. So we'll go to, we'll send them first. So we realized that was a really good location. Plus it helped us with our backup calls in Highlands, because we could either take the load off some of the stuff in Cowee Mountain and let Highlands stay available if we came from Otto, or it saved us a little time going up that way. So that was a really good location. We were doing some informal talks with them. What happens to what they call the new part of their building? That there's the older fire department, which is the community club that you're talking about there. Then you have the 2-bay or the 3-bay metal building right there. This the newer part that the fire department actually owns. We were talking to them, what are you going to do with this building when you get done? Because that's an ideal place for us. So that's why we were trying to figure out, that way if they were to move out, that building is not wasted, it's repurposed, and then even if we leased it or something, that would help them offset their payment on their building. It would get us what we needed without us having to build a building, and kind of spread the money out over something. But that was all in the planning process. A lot of that hinged on what happened with their new building, because right now we can't go there 24 hours because they don't have the sleeping quarters. We don't have the night quarters to legitimately put somebody there. We could do daytime, we have to park outside, but we could do daytime right now. So that was kind of part of the picture we were looking at from our end.
Ms. Edwards, welcome. Before you start, no, you can come on up. I'll speak to you as well, just so you know. I think it's your first time in here in front of us with a budget, but and I'll explain why I presume you're here. So our county manager has a set of funds from our revenues, and he's got a number that he uses, and he tries to work in everything that needs to partake in Macon County, all the expenses within that number. He can't go over it, because if he goes over it, that requires a tax increase, which comes back to us for it to happen. So his hands are tied, his neck's sort of in a noose of what he can do and can't do, and he has to try and get everything that he can in for that finite amount of money to the best of his abilities. So I presume you're here because I saw in the report that y'all asked for a minimal increase in your funds. County manager recommended that he keeps it flat, which I'm sure he'll explain his reasoning after we hear from you. But I just want everybody to know, sometimes that happens. Sometimes he requests a decrease. He's doing the best he can, but there shouldn't anybody ever be upset with Derek or their county manager for what he does and what he has to put up with for trying to do the best we can. He definitely doesn't ignore anybody. So thank you, Ms. Edwards. Welcome.
Thank you. And I guess I wanted to start out by thanking you all for your support over the years. I know we've had a good working relationship with Macon County in the past, and we look forward to that going forward as we work through budget issues and that kind of thing. I know we're not alone. I gave you all a printout of our proposed budget for this year. And last year we also were held flat. And in fact, I could only go back to 2014 in our program, and we have had the same budget, $175,000 for Macon County since 2014. So what that's meant for us is that as our salaries increase and that kind of thing, I'm having to pull appropriations out of my operating expense to cover the salary. And I'm at a point now where I don't have any more money. I'm out. I'm tapped out. I can't. If, to get to the nitty gritty pretty quick, if I am held to a capped out county portion of $70,000, I will have $16,000 to operate my office. That includes gasoline, it includes diesel, it includes oil changes, it includes truck maintenance, it includes the light bill, and I simply cannot do that. I mean, that's $1,300 a month. I mean, y'all know you can't run an office on $1,300 a month. So, anyhow, I know that in the past we have turned money back, so to speak. I think Derek and I talked about that some last year. The last sheet on the printout is our total authorized budget, our authorized salary, the salary that we spent, and if we don't spend salary, it's because we're having turnover and vacancies, and it happens. And then what's left is we call in state budget terms as lap salary. That lap salary goes back to Raleigh. I'm not allowed to touch that. And then I also have on here authorized non-salary spent and unspent operating. We did have unspent operating last year. We were given a no more spending on March 1st with COVID. So we were down to don't drive your truck, don't go anywhere unless you are responding to a fire call. So that's 4 months of operating that we didn't spend last year because of that. So, there's other things too that Macon County doesn't get billed for. We have myself, an assistant district forester, a service forester, a district ranger FM, a district ranger law enforcement officer, 2 bulldozers, a Rayco, an IC-35. We have 3 scout planes in Hickory, 2 helicopters. When we use those on fires in Macon County does not get billed for those expenses. And that's because we have this arrangement and this contract. So, y'all are getting a good bang for your buck. We put a helicopter on a fire in Macon County, it's driving me crazy, Cow's Cove. It did 100 bucket drops in one day. The bill on that would have been $50,000. So.
Remind me of your,
Yes.
what you're requesting, what we, just save me a little bit of digging.
Sure,
here.
absolutely. So, and I can walk through it line by line if y'all would like.
No details.
You don't want the details?
Give us the helicopter vision from up there.
We're asking for the county portion to be $78,490. That's an increase of $8,490 from you.
Okay. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I definitely agree. We do get a great bang for our buck. I look back at our county appropriations, and as you had mentioned, the remaining funds at the end of the year, and going back to 2015, when you look at, let's look at 2015, the county appropriation was $70,000. In that year, there was $4,662 that remained unspent. In 2016, the county appropriation was $70,000. There was $8,989 that remained unspent. In 2017, the budget was amended to cover infrastructure repairs to $74,800 again in 2017, and there was $14,046 remaining unspent at the end of that fiscal year. In 2018, we amended the budget to $86,000 to cover a $16,000 our contribution on the purchase of a truck, and in 2018, in that year, there was $15,458 remaining unspent at the end of the fiscal year. In 2019, appropriation was again $70,000. There was $8,802 in that year that remained unspent. And in 2020, we again amended the budget from $92,748. That was additional $22,000 to cover an additional vehicle. And at the end of that fiscal year, there was $21,013 that remained unspent at the end of the fiscal year. So just in 2015 through 2020, there's a total of $72,970, or about $12,162 that's left on the table annually at the end of the fiscal year. So I'm just, as the chairman said, it's a very tight budget, and if there's some way that that we can work to get some of this money cleared off the table at the end of the fiscal year, but I can't. Looking at these remaining balances at the end of each fiscal year, again, going back in the past 5 years, from 2020 to 2015, we're talking about $72,970. So again, if there's some way that we can find
How much was that salary?
That's just what the county gives you, that annual appropriation, and then our accounting.
We don't track it by
We
salary.
don't have
We don't
your
track it by
accounting.
expense.
That's just what's in our accounting system.
Well, and I
So-
guess that's why I did this as I did. The majority of the funds that we have on the books that's turned back as salary. And I can't move
Well,
that to
that would-
operating.
The county funds, all we do with this appropriation, I mean, and if there's any way that if this $15,458, that's county money in 2018, or the $21,000 that was left in 2020, that's county money. If there's some way we could work out to get those funds to you, we'd be happy to write you a check, because when we give you that $70,000 appropriation, we intend for it to be spent by the North Carolina Forest Service.
Right, and I have to cover this coming year $158,000 and change in salary, and I can't move that appropriation to operating at all. So your portion of that I can't use for anything else.
Now, Ms.
So
Edwards,
if it's not spent because I have a vacancy, then you're just not going to get billed for it, and it's being left on the table. Yes, but I cannot move that below the line to operating.
there was 2 unfunded mandates come down from the state, passed along to the county, passed along to North Carolina Forest Service that I'm aware of. There could have been 22 of them during this legislature. But there's 2 unfunded mandates for sure that came down that the county we had to go back and pick up. That's from 2018.
Okay.
So one of them is the retirement plan that comes out that the county has to pay. State mandated it, but it's up to us in your budget from the county to pay. That's number 1. Number 2 is your insurance.
Right.
So that's all unfunded mandates that's not reflective in the numbers that Derek shared. I'm not saying that I'm just saying that needs to be taken into account.
Sure.
We are dealing with unfunded mandates from the state legislature that are passed to you, and you just have X amount of dollars.
Right.
And you are very limited on where you can do your money. You're very, very limited.
Very.
We wanted to do a truck, maybe it's 10 years ago, I remember it.
I was going to say, do I need to tell y'all now there's going to be a truck in the budget next year, or should we hold off and wait on that?
Go down to Otto and
Should I
stop
go
it for a
ahead and
fire
start
truck.
greasing that wheel now, or?
Through May 28 of this year, there's $29,438 left. We could probably go ahead and buy it this year.
No.
But I mean, a lot of
They bill
that,
in arrears.
the
so
salary
there's a few
money
months
is where
to
you're
pay.
stuck at, right?
I'm sorry.
The salary money.
Yes,
That's where
sir.
the problem is.
The money is, yes, that number's dictated to me. I can't change it, and I can't move that, I can't play with it if
And
I
you
have.
can't take
if I have a
county
vacant-
dollars and supplement it.
Correct. I can't move, I cannot move with that stuff that's above the line in the budget. I just can't, I cannot play with it at all. So,
Thank you. Any questions?
yeah, do y'all have any questions? And I guess too, for perspective, the other, and I don't know if it matters or not, but Haywood, Jackson County, my operating budget with them is in the 50,000 range. So we're very underfunded in Macon County.
So you're asking for, did I hear you right, 8,000 total
Right shy of that.
in
yes, sir.
addition?
Yes, sir.
Going to 78,000. What did you just say, Jackson County?
They're operating only,
I'm not I was looking
Yeah.
at total. What is their total contribution?
I don't
Of
know
course, they
that,
have
but
a
I
bigger
can find out,
population
yeah.
too. Okay.
But they're a similar county. They're a three-person county, and I brought them with me. Y'all probably all know BJ Keener. He's your county ranger, and Adam Robbins is a new assistant county ranger, and he's joined us. He was a deputy with Caldwell County, and is now the assistant county ranger.
Lori, if we ever get our PILT money, would this be a good place to earmark some of that?
It's earmarked for schools.
Well,
bills?
the PILT money's already part of our budget.
Yeah, so I mean, would that be, it's payment in lieu of taxes for the Forest Service land, so,
I mean,
for federal lands.
Right.
So, and we've tried to get that as a line item budget in the federal, but can't get it happening, so we ain't got our money this year, have we, Laura?
Not yet. It usually
Not
comes
yet.
in June. So
But that's
hopefully it comes.
400 grand or so, 350?
But again, it's already built into our budget though.
Yeah.
I mean, it's already part of the revenues we
We
proposed
can
for
suck
next
her
year's
out of
budget.
that.
I would like, and also my boss, the regional forester, was not able to come today. He's down east on the severity team for their drought situation. But if you all are not going to recommend an increase in our budget, he and the state forester would like to have an opportunity to come talk to you all about what our budget and services will be under what Derek and you all are recommending. So.
Thank you.
Sure. That money you're talking about, the $27,000 that you guys can't use, where does the money go if it's not spent?
Rolls in the fund balance.
Goes into the fund balance.
But we already have that money budgeted for.
Yeah, it's appropriated to the Forest Service. Every year we appropriate them $70,000, and since 2015, there's been about $12,162 a year that remains unspent. So,
I don't have a problem giving it to you. You're going to give it back anyway.
I hope not. My staff is stable now, thanks. That's not funny.
It would be fund balance, Ronnie, your question. I mean,
It's back in fund
it's
balance.
gonna roll into fund balance. You could appropriate fund balance in the upcoming year for 8490 if you wanted to.
yeah, I mean,
Because their unspent money is just gonna roll into our fund balance.
and that's what I'm saying. If there was something like that, I mean, that works out great.
Because it's really not practical to just write them a check for what's left on the table.
I don't think I
because
can.
the way it's set up, I get an invoice each month that shows all of their expenditures, and then it bills the county for 40%. So we're paying on actual expenditures. So, and the $20-something thousand number that's remaining now, we still have a few months because, again, they bill in arrears, and I still have a few months to pay them. But yeah, they're definitely going to probably be $8,000 to $10,000 left on the table at the end of this year.
Yeah, I
If
think
y'all
right
wanted to,
now.
you could appropriate the fund balance in next year to cover this increase.
Yeah.
Thank you, Laura. Gosh, the numbers that roll through your heads, amazing.
This is a county nightmare, isn't it?
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Sure, absolutely.
Have you recovered from the fires? The Forest Service hadn't even recovered from the drought fires that we had. Has the Forest Service, the state would not allocate to replenish the funds for 4 years. And that's been how many years ago now? When was all the fires?
2016.
5 years ago.
Yeah, we're due
Last year,
another-
you still ain't got your money, the replacement funds. So, then you ain't gonna get it. That's just the way it is. So that's another reason that you're hurting.
Work on that your next trip, Ronnie.
Thank you.
Work on that your next trip down.
All right.
No. You can't run if they got no fence, you don't want to fool it.
Anything else for fire departments or Forest Service? Pretty good. All right, let's move on to school system budget discussion. Dr. Baldwin, do you have questions after seeing county managers? Have y'all had discussions, or we where do we go from here?
We had them leading up to the budget, none since the.
Right.
Oh, I didn't know if y'all had met
Not since his recommended.
Okay. Good. Do you have questions, thoughts? Do we have questions for
I'll
you?
just, if you got just a few minutes, I'll
Sure, no.
go
That's
over
why we're
the
here.
reasons
It's
for our
a
request.
huge item in our budget.
Absolutely, I understand. And certainly appreciate the opportunities to present our projected needs for school year 21-22. And as Derek pointed out during his recommended budget presentation, there are a lot of uncertainties around fiscal year 21-22's budget. We don't know where the state budget's going to land at this point. Will there be associated salary increases for our employees? Will there be benefit increases for our employees? Will there be additional teacher allotments from the state? We simply don't know these things at this time. We do know that we have a significant increase in federal funding this school year that has to be spent by December of 2024. There's a lot of uncertainties about
how that money can be or should be spent that we've got to work through. But along with all those uncertainties, we do know that there are some certainties as well. And a lot of that is around the pandemic. We know that there are significant academic losses as a result of what this school system and every school system across the nation went through over the past 15, 16 months. And our budget request reflects those needs and how we would attempt to address some of those needs. Obviously, our focus is going to be academic losses that are associated with kids not being in school and being at home and virtual learning and all that goes along with that. But we also know that before we can begin to address the academic losses, we have to address the social and emotional needs that have been impacted by kids being away from school, parents and kids being together for 15 or 16 months and trying to get through virtual learning with parents not being able to work and those sorts of things. So we know that we're going to have to work through a lot of that. And our budget request with regard to the mental health professionals goes towards addressing those needs. Both the Board of Education and the county commissioners have heard from our community about how important the arts are to our community. And I believe that we all agree that the arts are important. We also know, as Ronnie pointed out at a recent commissioners meeting, that NAMI understands that, and NAMI I think is the National Association of Mental Illness. They understand the importance of music and art in addressing mental illness and mental health needs. So our budget request for the art positions, music and art positions, that reflects our understanding of how important the arts are, not only to the academic needs, but the social and emotional learning needs of students. So we know that there's a need there. It's a matter of how do we fund those positions. Our request also pointed out the K-3 class size legislation, how that's impacted our school system since 2016-17. Basically what we're trying to do with that is make you aware of where additional teaching positions have gone over the past 4 or 5 years in the Macon County schools. We've had to hire 15 additional K-3 teachers as a result of that K-3 class size legislation. Now some of those have been offset by program enhancement positions from the state, but not all of them. Some of those positions have also been offset by the geographically isolated schools bill that Senator Davis and Representative Corbin were able to get passed a few years ago. But those things have impacted our budget as well. Normally we would have used those positions to fund perhaps music and art. They've gone to K-3 positions. So our budget, yes, that is obviously a huge impact to your budget. We understand that. It's a 16% increase roughly in what you've been providing us. We appreciate the support that this Board of Commissioners has given us over the years. It's obviously very important to our students and to our community. Now, do you all have any questions for me about our budget request? Moving forward?
It's difficult. It's difficult on us as commissioners because, as I mentioned earlier, we have a limited pot of money and we're divvying it out for Sheriff's Department, we're divvying it out for Human Resources, we're divvying it out for social work, all these things. So there's a point where it comes out and, we would love to fund everything, but the only way we can really do that is through a significant tax increase. And then what are we doing to the community when we do that? Yes, a lot of people, tax increase, it doesn't bother that much, but a lot of people, a tax increase, it does bother. So I know you appreciate that. And
I do.
I was chuckling up here a minute ago because since I've been a commissioner every year, we never know what the state's going to do. And it's the same thing every year. Y'all are walking blind. Every budget year we've been here, walking in, wondering what we're going to do, wondering what the state's going to do, and every year we tend to make it through with what we're doing. So, you mentioned that you have a good amount of money coming to the federal government this year. It has to be spent, like it sounds like in 3 years from now, 2 years from now.
That's correct.
If I understand the ARC positions, is there opportunity, you said I heard you also say that you don't know how that money can be spent yet. Is there opportunity within your board for y'all to make decisions to perhaps supplement your capital expenditures, your capital issues with that, your repairs, whatever it might be, and then take some of our funds and roll them into those positions? I know you're taking a gamble for 2 years, 3 years to pay for those new positions that you're needing.
Well,
but you also have additional money coming in that you might be able to, again, I don't know how y'all do it, but to me it seems logical. It might get us 2 to 3 years down the road.
I think it would be probably more appropriate for us to utilize the ESSER funding for capital projects because of the guidelines that we've been given at this point. Basically, we're to follow 3 rules, and that is it allowable? Does it align with the uses outlined in law? Is it reasonable? Is it most cost effective? And is it necessary? And that part is the part that we've got to work through, because the 3 things that are required is it must be linked to a reduction of, a prevention of, or a response to COVID-19. Now, based on some of the guidelines that we've received at this point, is that it does appear that we can enter into construction projects. And one of the things that we have proposed is building a 6 classroom addition at East Franklin. And we're trying to tie that into the COVID response due to the limited space at East Franklin. We've got kids that are receiving tutoring services in stairwells. Those are poorly ventilated. If we had additional space, we could hopefully reduce the spread of COVID-19 or diseases similar to that. And obviously, the East Franklin is one of the only schools, is the only elementary school in the Franklin area that doesn't have a pre-K program. And that's due to the lack of classroom space over there. So that would allow us to address some of the family needs that have arisen as a result of COVID-19. So that's what we're trying to do with that. Now, unfortunately, that was kicked back. That request was denied in our first application. Now, we're going to reapply, and we're going to use a lot more of the evidence that we have from East Franklin that are associated with COVID-19. We're also going to upgrade technology through our SRO, or we're hoping that we'll be able to do that. Right. And a lot of that is pending our application process at this point.
You understand what I was mentioning though about us, because it's just a simple stroke of the pen for us to move it from capital to operational. But the thing with that, if we do that though, is if presuming you could use that funds for capital expenditures, is that it hamstrings us down the road.
Sure.
Well, so then we're going to be caught hanging those operational business, and then you're going to be back looking to us for capital as well.
Right.
I see it as a temporary solution.
And with that regard, we can also use the ESSER funding for the mental health professionals, the ARC positions, as long as we can meet that 3-pronged requirement. Okay. And we feel like that those are, based on what NAMI has said about music and art, and obviously the mental health professionals, we feel that those are allowable expenditures. Okay. However, that's my point. It goes away, but at the same, this is a little different than our funding that we received back in 2010-11. That money really didn't have a lot of guidelines associated with it. This is specific. Will those positions address a response to COVID-19? Yes, they will. That money is expected to be spent on addressing COVID-19 and its impact. Sure. So it's an allowable expenditure, but once we go down that path, at some point that money runs out. I doubt that anyone's going to lose those positions at that time. And as long as everyone's on board with why we're doing that, then we feel like it's an allowable expenditure.
It never goes away. I've been noodling this for the past several weeks, and it's a difficult situation. I certainly appreciate what y'all do, though. Can you tell me how much y'all have in y'all's fund balance?
Right now, it's about 1.3 million.
Okay.
Roughly.
Good.
We're working.
Good. And I'm just going to ask our commissioners, for my sanity, y'all please respect my sanity. Let's hold off on the new school discussion. We're going to get into that tonight. But let's hold off on that. Let's focus on y'all's budget for this year. And then we'll talk about the school next.
Let's talk a minute about the art program and the school nurses. In this budget, it looks like you said you've had to hire 15. Are you going to hire 15?
We have hired 15 that includes a projected additional 4 K-3 positions this year. This year was the big year. This was the year that the law goes fully into effect. 21-22 goes fully into effect. Up until this year, we've had a limit of 21. The past year was 21. Previous to that, it was 22. Before that, it was a class size of 23. So it's gone down 23, 22, 21. This year, though, we cannot exceed our funding ratio, which means in kindergarten, we have to stay within 18 students per teacher, 16 first grade, and 17 for second and third. So that's a drop from 21 to 18 to 16 to 17 to 17. Now, we still have we can exceed those individual class size maximums by 3 as long as the LEA allotment doesn't go over, or the LEA ratio doesn't go over the funding allotment. So it was a significant impact for us. Now, moving forward, we shouldn't see that dramatic of an issue year to year. We may have to hire a teacher here or there, and we may be able to move a teacher to another position over the coming years. But the other thing that has gone along with that is originally with that K-3 class size limit legislation, I don't think that the General Assembly fully understood how that funding was utilized. They didn't understand that it funded music and art positions in foreign language and PE. After they implemented the legislation and realized that that class size allotment funded those program enhancement positions, they reintroduced and re-implemented a plan for program enhancement positions. We've received 10.5 program enhancement positions since 2016-17. Unfortunately, we have over 15 program enhancement positions already in the district that were funded out of the classroom teacher allotment. So it helped. It didn't. Obviously, those 10.5 positions didn't address the 15 that we had. That's where the geographically isolated schools allotment came in.
What about the school nurses? I think you're going to have to be calling them. They're going to be more than nurses. They got to be a mental health clinician, and they're going to be real busy.
Yes, they are.
They already are real busy. So I think when we met the other night, you mentioned 5 more, or 5. I know now we have 5 now.
We requested 6 additional. That would give us 1 per school.
1 per school. And with
now,
the art, how many positions did you on the art side?
All right, so.
And do you have room for art in every school?
It's just the middle school, ain't it?
Well, we requested additional art positions at the elementaries, the middle school, and Union. That was the 4 positions that we requested.
Well, they got room at all those places for art?
There'll be art on a cart at Cartuca.
Art on a cart?
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, and also East Franklin. But the other schools do have the room. Middle school for the upcoming school year is going to be a challenge with the renovations going on. We'll work something out between middle school and Union. That's at least what we hope to do.
Every year, same thing. I don't understand what's going on here. You really gotta carry Angie with you so she can explain this budget process. The way I view it is we hire Derek to negotiate with you on educational spending. We don't negotiate with teachers as we've done in the past. We don't negotiate with the school board as has been mentioned. It's him and you. And when he brings us a proposed budget, I cannot grasp this, the stuff you're talking out there. That's not my cup of tea. That's yours, Angie's, and Derek's. Initially, when we started this year's budget process, you were recommending a flat budget.
No.
Your initial budget
No, back in February, I requested something similar to this. We tweaked it a little bit since then based on K-3 class size needs that are projected for next year based on retentions and additional students, depending on which grade level they're in. But it was pretty much similar to this.
What was the amount of that?
I don't know that we had an amount associated with that at that back in February or not. I don't remember if we did or not. It was pretty similar to this. The only difference was we had a more clear we have a more clear understanding now of the K-3 class size legislation, how that's going to impact our budget. That's reflected at the bottom of our request.
And your COVID money, how much money is the education system getting in 2 years on COVID relief, CARES Act or whatever?
Over the next 2 years, approximately $15 million.
Yeah. How much is the county getting?
6.95.
That's a lot of money, ain't it? Multiplied out across the United States. Holy cow.
Trillions.
We're in a hole, but man, money's everywhere. Arts. It was, I don't do Facebook, but I was alerted that there had been a t-shirt brigade called together because the county manager had instructed us not to field any calls for requests. Never happened. County manager doesn't dictate to us what we do or the calls we take, so hope this misinformation gets straightened out. In a minute, tell me about the arts program. Why are we, last year it was STEM program. I understood STEM and the importance of that. We picked that out, we funded that. This year it's music and arts. Why don't we have music and arts in schools? I mean, we do have it in schools, right? Mm-hmm. What are we wanting to do with it?
What's that?
What are we wanting to do with that program?
We want to expand that program. And some of that is not necessarily an expansion. Some of that is a result of the budget reduction that we went through as a result of the recession. We lost positions at Macon Middle School that were never filled, and that's where some of the request is coming from. Additionally, COVID has created a situation where music and art can fill in that mental health gap, as well as provide significant improvements and enhancements to the academic program.
Oh, absolutely. I'm a strong supporter of it. Is that not an operational function? Funding that program, staffing that program?
Of the state? But the state won't do it.
The way the state funds program enhancement at this point, and that has shifted since around 2016. Prior to 2016-17, when the class size limit legislation was enacted, music and art was expected to come out of our classroom teacher allotment. Now, back in the 90s, there was a program enhancement allotment. Then they shifted all of that funding to the classroom teacher allotment, and school systems were expected to fund music, art, PE, and foreign language out of that classroom teacher allotment. Now, over the years, we offer music and art at the elementaries. We offered music and art at the middle school. When we went through the budget reductions as a result of the recession, we had to attrit positions, and that depended on whether or not we had a PE position at MVI that left as a result of receiving another job offer, or a retirement, or a resignation for any other reason. We might have attrited a position at that school based on that being a non-core subject, such as PE. Middle school happened to be art at that time. I know Scotty Corbin was there for a period of time. So it depended on whatever position, as long as it was non-core. We tried to hold on to all of our core positions, math, science, reading, language arts, that sort of thing. We lost the art position at middle school, and we've never been able to find the funding for that. Some of that is a result of the K-3 class size legislation. Most of our positions have gone into the K-3 classes since at least 17.
That's still the state's responsibility though, isn't it, to staff that?
It depends how you want to look at it. Constitutionally, state constitution reads that the state will provide for the operation of the schools. Then the lottery funds is given to us to provide for capital needs. Some school systems fund considerably more in operations. Some counties fund considerably more in operations than others do. So it depends on how you want to look at it.
It's a crapshoot.
Yep, pretty much.
Let Angie figure out how to use that COVID money. Just a brief thing on school. We've talked about school expansions here, and you mentioned tonight a couple of locations that need some expansion. Is that on paper? We've talked about school plans. Is there a plan for what the educational system of Macon County wants to do over the next 5 or 10 years?
We are required by law to submit a plan to the DPI every 5 years, a long-range plan. We also submit that. It's required that we submit to county manager. So yes, we have a.
Can we get a copy of that? Can I get a copy of that?
I don't have it with me, but yes.
Derek got a copy of it.
I mean, because right now the only debt that Macon County taxpayers have is school debt. We're about $32 million now of school debt. Zero general fund, general operations debt, and we're.
Well, let me ask you something about that. Parker Meadows was a pretty substantial investment for Macon County, right?
Yes.
You paid that off pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Why not school debt? I mean, you made a choice there to go with Parker Meadows over school debt.
I would not.
3 of us had that choice. Not the whole board.
So, but what I'm saying there is that some of that's a choice.
Yeah, it was minimal, $2 million.
But $32 million is just hard to cough up overnight.
It is hard to cough up overnight.
And we messed up on Parker Meadows. I think we were getting.
But I guess my point is this: Do you receive any dollars that must go to school construction?
The lottery money.
And part of the sales
Which
tax
we're all the
is
way
here.
up to 21% now.
And the PILT, I think $300,000 a year, yeah.
Article 40 and 42?
I don't see
The
that,
sales
I'm not
tax,
into this.
not
I'm a ditch
bills,
digger.
not
I'm not
bills,
into
no.
it.
Well,
A certain percentage of our sales tax has to be for school debt service related to buildings or the buildings.
Yeah. And it's applied, right?
Yeah,
Sure.
definitely. And the lottery funds, yeah, those two sources of revenue help to, pay school
And the
debt.
lottery funds have never exceeded, they're the highest they've ever been, and now, I said it's 20-point-something%. Supposed to be in 40 from the get-go.
But
40%.
those
which
help.
would increase that to about $600,000.
Yeah.
Those
We get
help.
about half what we should from lottery funds.
Yeah.
Those help. Well, we couldn't come up with $15 million to go over and redo the
No.
Macon Middle School.
No,
So we have to stretch
I
out on the
understand.
debt
I
schedule.
understand that.
And we just can't pay it off. And now we're going to get into another discussion later about. But so I'm just wanting to see this plan. What is our structural brick and mortar plan?
Based on memory, I can tell you that plan that we most recently submitted included 6 classrooms at Cartuga J, 6 classrooms at East Franklin.
All I'm asking for is a copy of that.
Yeah. And also Macon Middle School's renovations and Franklin High School.
Yeah, if I can just get a copy, I don't care where it's from, if it's
Yeah,
what I read. I can't understand all this
Well,
other
give
stuff.
me your email address. I'll send it to you tonight. Give me your email. I'll send it to you first thing in the morning.
Dr. Vaughn, you think you have the ability to, if this is funded, to fill those positions? I mean, DSS.
That's a question.
I mean, DSS
That's a question that I think that's going to be one of our biggest challenges. And I think that's across the board, though. Western Carolina University graduated 1 language arts teacher and 2 math, or 2 language arts and 1 math, something like that. So we're going to be in a human resources battle because all of these counties have this federal money. All these school systems have this federal money, and they're going to be going after the same people.
What a lot of them, I'm afraid, are going to do is like we made a mistake one time and put it in reoccurring expense. Can't do that. It'll come, that's part of what's coming back, still back.
But the part, I'll send that to you first thing. part of the problem with this ESSER funding too, though, is if you're going to address the academic losses that are associated with COVID-19, how do you do that without hiring people? I mean, if you do it any other way, you're wasting money. Now, we're going to spend a lot of money on staff development for our folks, but...
Do you know, Dr. Baldwin, if you, during the pandemic and the virtual teaching and kids not coming back, have we lost ADM money? Do we know yet?
Based on what our projected allotment is for next year, and it's a little bit, you have to kind of read into it. For instance, last year we received 8 positions for program enhancement total. This year we're receiving 10.5, but our overall allotment is only going up 1 position. So it's hard to say if they have reduced our 001 numbers based on our ADM decreases, and it looks like we have lost kids due to COVID-19. I don't think we've lost it to the extent that other systems have. Fortunately for us, though, the state is not looking at 2021 to base our funding allotment on for 21-22. They're looking back at 19-20. So we'll see how that all plays out with the number of folks that have purchased property in Macon County. I suspect that our numbers will go up next year. Now, will we have the teachers in place to apply towards those numbers? We won't know until somewhere around September the 1st.
Dr. Baldwin, I agree with Paul on this, that I don't do Facebook, but I've got it sent to me 28 times today by people from one of your employees. I don't know who it is. Don't say. But it basically says, the meeting starts at 4 p.m. The county manager's recommended the commissioners ignore any request for additional positions, and it goes on. It don't say who wrote it. It just says, Ronnie, please read. Ronnie, please read. 28 times. So if you're encouraging your employees, that don't help. If they don't know what Derek is doing.
Mr. Beal, if I may, as a non-employee of Macon.
That was what?
I wrote that.
You wrote it?
I wrote that, and I really quick, within the hour, I realized my mistake. And I did edit that, and I apologize for that, but that was not Dr. Baldwin.
I must not got Eddie the Virgin, because buddy, my phone rung off the hook. I'm just saying, your employees need to be careful, Dr. Baldwin, because it really affects how we look at things sometimes. It's what Derek's job really is. His job is not to ignore.
That was my mistake.
I understand that. I don't think that our employees did that. And if they do, let me know.
Are you a school employee?
No, sir.
I didn't know. I figured it was a compliment.
One other question. This is way off the wall. Appreciate you coming. I appreciate you negotiating with Derek. Your knowledge, you and Angie's knowledge of the school system financing is way above anybody sitting up here. So we're just doing the dance more or less tonight. I have to look for Derek for guidance on school funding. I appreciate your input and your availability, and certainly Angie's too.
And I feel the same way about this board.
Yeah, and we may pick at each other a little bit, but overall, we know what the end product has to be. How we get there, I don't know. The state, it's every year it's a dance. Critical race theory. Has that thing even come close to Macon County yet?
The only thing that I've heard much about critical race theory. I know
about
that
what? I didn't understand.
Critical race theory.
Gotcha.
Some of my colleagues, there have been some protests at board meetings and that sort of thing. I don't even know where it's at in the state curriculum right now as far as consideration. It's not something that we're overly concerned about at this point, at least in Macon County. John, you may know more about it, being a social studies teacher, than I do.
I don't know of a single teacher in North Carolina public schools that teaches critical race theory. Do we teach the impacts of racism in the United States, from Bacon's Rebellion to slavery to convict labor to keeping people of color from fighting in combat units in World War I, segregated units in World War II, Jim Crow, segregated schools, mass incarceration? Yeah, we do teach that.
It's part of history, right?
Say again?
It's part of history.
It's all part. That's exactly right. It's part of.
We don't erase history. We learn from it. That's just a question I have because
Sure.
there's some crazy stuff.
You know, I know it's come up in surrounding districts. I think Chairman Breedlove had received an email questioning what our position is. You know, we follow the state curriculum. We don't add to or take away from that a great deal.
Okay, that's an off the wall. Had to throw it out there. Thank you again.
I'll say a few things. Boy, I'm glad I've gone last. I probably have more ties to this Macon County school system than anybody in this room, and so it's important to be able to vote without emotions. And talking about what Mr. Beal and Mr. Higgins touched on with the, I would say contracts, but more or less the contracts we have with North Carolina and how the state funds the operational and the county funds the brick and mortar. So if you said we're after a 16% increase, $10.6 million is what the county already provides. Can you imagine what kind of capital we would have in our community if we had $10 million a year to go to these buildings and structures? And I mean, the high school wouldn't even be an issue. The middle school, we'd have brand new schools everywhere you look. So at some point in time, I have to stop and say, I got to keep my eyes on the prize. We just talked about the high school, and with regards to Mr. Taylor, I'm not going to go there, but like, you know, I don't want to see somebody break their leg on that track. I want to kind of focus on the contract and what we're supposed to provide for this community. And that's kind of where I'm going. At some point in time, Mr. Beal said it in the last meeting, we don't tell the school board where they spend their money. There's $10.6 million of county funds going to the school board, and you know, it's I know the STEM, I know there's an outdoor program at the middle school. There's a lot of different really cool programs, but I think it's up to the county and the community and the school board to kind of, you know, help kind of, you know,
decide what you want to
know
fund.
what I mean? Yeah. So
you
to
decide
me,
what you want to fund.
like, I want to focus on capital. I'm okay. It's okay with me to spend my money when I see something nice, and especially when we abide by the state contract. And I just feel like if we just keep going, we're never going to have a school. These schools are going to keep on flopping. They're going to be 80 years old, and we're going to keep putting, you know, money into the same schools. And maybe it's just me. I'm glad there's 5 commissioners, but I want to see something nice with the capital expenses that we're supposed to provide. So that's kind of where I stand on this.
Any further questions?
It all came back to the number of students in the classroom. So it came back that historically, if that piece had never been bothered, we would have been in this situation today. We have our arts, music, things like that.
But traditionally, you've been in education long enough to know that something changes every year with that, with how we're funded and what we're expected to do, with what we're funded, the amounts that we're funded in.
Right. And they gave us I want to say a little reprieve about 3 or 4 years ago where we wouldn't have where we could keep our music, art, and PE and stuff like that. But we knew it was going to come to an end because they told us it was going to come to an end the end this year. And it'd be nice to get a call from somebody saying, we're going to give you 3 more years in this situation. But the end is here. But now we got to deal with it.
Well, and we know that we're going to have to deal with crises. I mean, we had the recession back in 2010. We've had the pandemic now. There will be something else in 4 or 5 years that we'll have to deal with. I mean, we don't know how that's going to affect schools then.
I think you mentioned it a while ago. Qualified manpower is going to be
It's going to be a huge challenge.
vacuum we're going to have. You and I talked about it 2 years ago. Teacher assistants. You go out here and try to find 39 or 40 teacher assistants. That's what we needed in our classrooms to work the year.
Yeah, they're required to have a certain number of hours, college credit hours, and McDonald's is offering a $500 signing bonus. We in trouble. Good point.
At the schools and universities, students are not going in this arena, and the education arena is one. You mentioned that there a while ago. Also, there was another video I saw 2 days ago, and I've got it here somewhere, is that it's not so much, I went on the theory there for a while, about the change of mind, that it's more than just one theory, that you can't pay people not to work. And I held on to that until I saw that video the other day, And it's our population, the workforce population that's decreasing. You got people like me, older like me, that are retiring, and that void is not being replaced by births.
No.
And when I looked at that the other day, we had a number of things that was affecting this job market. That's just one of them. So
Yeah, and you got cars that can drive themselves now too.
Right.
They still flying them airplanes?
What's that?
They still flying them airplanes?
They're working on it.
Oh.
Josh is not in that
Hey,
figure, Mr. Shields.
You got
probably
people
about
in Las
population.
Vegas flying airplanes that are bombing in Afghanistan.
He's not young.
That's the job I want. Thank you, Chris. Oh,
Now, I just was at our ball, we appreciate what you do for Macon County very much so, and please don't leave, because I think we got a couple more topics to talk about regarding our budget, and then we're gonna circle back on the high school.
Okay.
So,
Thank you, guys.
hang out for just a minute. Thank you.
Gosh, appreciate
I must have got the wrong agenda. Excuse me.
It's
that's
under
mine.
item number 3. Y'all please silence your cell phones, please. It's under item number 3. It's budget discussions as needed.
Talk to me.
Anything else?
What did you, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, what did you say?
Any other budget discussions as needed? I'm following the agenda as Paul
Yeah,
said.
just get your list out.
The
high school you said we was gonna talk about.
Y'all got? I want to talk about the high school after we get done with budget.
Well, does anybody else out here got anything before we? You
That's
gonna
what I was
call on
asking
anybody?
y'all.
That was it?
Y'all go ahead.
Okay.
I'm up for whatever.
A few things that I have is, that as liaison to, that we'd like to talk to the county manager about. One was the increase in the library budget. I know we pay a lot through Fontana Regional Library for our library service. We do have 3 libraries. We have not, the best of my knowledge, we gave them a $20,000 increase, I believe it was 8 years ago. They've asked for a $53,000 increase this year. Going back and looking and doing my own style of math, I do think a $30,000 increase is warranted. We do have to pay, they use that budget for, we already pay $1.1 million, Derek?
$1,019,309.
That's just not counting, we also pay for
Yes, for
all the utilities, overhead,
overhead.
but this is for basically for the employees, to have, for their insurance and raise, which they are not county employees, but I'd like for the board to take that into consideration. And,
Ronnie, I'm sorry, are you recommending the full
no,
funding or just
30,000.
30,000 above current budget?
I done my own color
All right.
safety math on that.
I'm sorry, I just
So-
wanted to make sure I had my notes correct.
Also, we're gonna have to have a discussion, Derek, do you have any more knowledge on the pay study? The scale,
Gallagher.
whatever that is.
What we presented at the budget meeting, again, at 6% is about what we have reserved, and with the revenue parameters that were put in place and funding everything the best we could, that was the revenue that was available, and we reserved.
But is that enough?
And earmarked it. The preliminary recommendation from Gallagher right now is at 7 to 9%. Average, and that is average. That does not mean that upon implementation, when I say 6% average, that doesn't mean that everybody in the county gets a 6%. Or when Gallagher says 7 to 9%, they're saying on average, our positions are 7 to 9% below market value. So what we have earmarked and set aside is 6%. And I want to harp on that.
You're hedging, Derek. Is there
because
enough money in there for the raises for everybody as we talked about?
We will make it work. I mean, Jackson County right now, for instance, they a very similar county. We compare to them in a lot of things. They're appropriating, I was reading their budget message, they're doing a pay study in this budget year and they're earmarking $1 million. Swain County is also conducting a pay study this year, but again, that's not a comparable county. But the revenue parameters we were given, as the chairman's alluded to, was to get this budget balanced without a tax increase, and that's what we've done. And with that being said, that we will use the money, 1.23 million that's earmarked, to address the critical areas in the pay scale that need addressing, and I think that we can make that work.
So is that a yes? There's enough money in there to do what you need to do?
You never
Now's
know,
the
the
time.
study's done. I mean,
You don't know.
you know, it's just it's a reserve fund. And you don't have to spend it all.
And I think I think we, as that study progresses, we'll be able to.
When's the last time you talked to them?
We talk to them every week, Wednesday. Right now, we've made some revisions to the last document they sent us. We went through what they sent us. We had collected our own internal data. We've been collecting it for 10 months prior to contracting with Gallagher. And so we went through and seen what they're recommending on their benchmark positions and seen what we had internally and where there were discrepancies of 5% greater or 5% less. We've noted all those, and Gallagher's right now working on, and we'll meet next week to see, there was about 14 out of the 40 positions that we matched up that were plus or minus that 5% that could really impact that study and what the results of it are. So we're still fine tuning.
But I just know we've sat here through 4 of these things and it's never been funded, so if we're gonna do another, let's see if we got enough money to fund it. That's the one thing. And the last thing, Mr. Chairman, is we still need to talk about the library in Nantahala. We got to make some decisions over there. Either it's down to 2 things. Either we tear down the existing structures and appropriate the money for a new building where it is now, or we make provisions. They will not be moving to the new building, so I don't know where we stand with that. So that may be a discussion for a later time, but if we're going to appropriate money in a budget, now's the time for that. Nikwasi recommended from that, and we can, I think that money, Derek, can come from the Economic Development Fund if we need to. And I'd have to have a change in the budget, that $25,000, remember that?
I wouldn't recommend that, just because we've hit it so hard with the broadband project, which was $580,000, and then the reopening Macon fund last year was what, 220.
Yeah.
So you've hit that fund pretty hard. Its reserves are very low.
That's a very minimal investment on what Nikwasi's doing.
What was the amount running?
$25,000. And we're going to have just because we're not going to have no water at all. We need ask for appropriation of $10,000 for a new well at Cowee School. We're going to have to do it.
Yeah.
We won't have no choice. That's a county-owned building, and we keep getting letters, and because it's a public, it's just like any of our other public buildings. So I believe, Mr. Chairman, other than the high school, I think we're in pretty good shape.
That's the cheapest you've let us off in a long time, Ronnie.
That's what?
That's the cheapest you've let us off in a
Oh,
long time.
I ain't done yet.
No, I
We
know.
ain't done. That's just the first get-go call. We gotta watch what's going on in Washington. We make that 400,000 a year, buddy. We're gonna get her hard, so let's be careful.
Commissioner Shields, any questions on the budget?
Not pertaining to those topics.
Anything new that you want to add for discussion tonight besides the high school?
No, that's
Okay.
it.
Commissioner Young?
Yeah, I've got a couple. A couple of my questions, Mr. Sheriff, would go to you, and maybe some of the courthouse security. Do you have an update with, I walk through that metal detector every month, and it's never been functional.
Yeah, it actually hasn't, and the reason for that is because we're having a hard time getting employees, basically because of the pay and issues that are going on. As you probably know, we have 13 or 14 positions that are open right now. 4 of those positions are courthouse security that you all will remember giving us, and we still have those 4 positions that are available that we have to fill. And That's the reason you can't have somebody manning those equipment, and then you can't have somebody there and in the courtroom at the same time. And that's the issue that we have.
Let me ask you about, you have how many open employees? 13 open positions?
I believe it's 13, it might be 14 now.
Like, let me ask, I mean, I'm shooting, pardon me for my inexperience, okay, but shooting from the hip here, it seems like realistically we're not going to fill 14 positions. It's been open for some time now. Is there any way we can maybe take 6 of those positions, 7 of those positions, and take their salaries and maybe redistribute to our other loyal employees and kind of
You
maybe
absolutely could.
maybe up some of those positions and say, hey,
absolutely
look, thanks
could.
for staying with us because I know they could go anywhere else and make more money.
You absolutely could, and what you'll do is you'll eliminate services to the citizens of Macon County.
Well, right
We
now,
already don't have enough people to fill shifts. We already don't have enough people on manpower. And when you start eliminating positions that we have fought very hard for the last 18 years to increase, and thank goodness that the commissioners were able to do that for us at different times. Never in my 30-year career with the Sheriff's Office have I had so much difficulty in filling positions. And that's because, like right now, you have a BLET class, Basic Law Enforcement Training class. I think you have 4 people that's left in that class to graduate, and they're not even finished yet. So you'll be lucky if you have 2 or 3 people in that graduating class. And if I eliminate positions, those are positions that I will never get back, Mr. Young. I can guarantee you, because for me to get a position takes an act of Congress nearly with the county commissioners. And that's because you all are very tight with the funds, and that's what your job is to do. So I have to really work hard to be able to show the stats. Our school resource officers, the only reason that we have school resource officers in our school system is because we've eliminated positions within our agency. We have received a couple of grants in order through the years to be able to get those positions, but we've actually have eliminated positions. We've had officers that have retired, and instead of replacing those officers, we have taken those officers and put them into the schools to create the SRO position. So all that to say, you're absolutely right. We could take those vacant positions that you say that we probably could never fill. I have a feeling that once the pay study gets completed, we'll have an easier time of getting that. The only reason that we have so many vacancies is because our county is losing people that we've invested 6 and 10, 15 years into, and they're going to agencies within our own county making $6,000 to $8,000 more a year.
that's why I make my recommendation. So my question, I guess, if we're losing services, are those services currently being provided? If we have 13 vacant positions, by no means do I want to cut the budget. I just want to up the scale again and say, look, like, you know, it's the same thing in my industry. You know, I've never paid a tree climber more money than what I'm paying right now. It's unbelievable. I'm sure everybody else. So
what happens is you're not the services that we're doing our best to provide. We're still providing those services minus 14 people, because what's happening is, and I know some of you have made issues out of my overtime. Understandably, I should be asked about that. Well, the reason we have so much overtime is when we have positions on the road that are vacant, that we don't have people in, then somebody who's already worked their 86 hours in this pay period has to come in and work another 12-hour shift or a 36-hour shift, or not shift, but 36 hours after they've already worked 46 hours this week. And so they fill in on those vacancies. The place that we don't have that a whole lot of is courthouse security. We have part-time people that come in and help with our courthouse security to fill in courts, because, you know, we used to have, you know, 1 court or maybe even 2 courts in a week. Now we're having, at times, we're having 3 courts 4 days a week, or 3 courts 5 days a week in the 3 different courtrooms. Well, you can't have people on the metal detector. You've got to have 2. You can't have 2 people there, and then also your people up in the courtroom. You cannot adequately have 1 officer in a courtroom with about 500 people. 500 people that are in court for a reason. I know some of them are probably innocent, but most of them aren't. And you've got 1 person that's in there responsible for the protection of all your court personnel. makes it really difficult.
I just know in today's time, it's tough to be in law enforcement. You know, I appreciate what they do, and by
It's
no
the worst
means,
it's ever been.
I mean, I see your pain. I'm just trying to, I'd hate to see you next month and you say, I'm down 17 people. I don't know what I'm going, you know.
If I had a magic wand, I'd fix the pay. I've already told the manager, he'd probably verify it for you. I don't care what you take out of my budget. You can take my pants, you can take my cars, you can take my shoes, you can take my patrol cars. I don't care. You need to pay my officers more money. And my officers are not the only ones. It's all over the state of North Carolina. And it's not a priority for most counties. It's just not. And I'm passionate about it. I don't make no bones about it. I think I fought really hard for 18 years as the sheriff. I couldn't fight for that before that because I wasn't the sheriff. But I'm really hoping that this pay study, I'm like Ronnie Beal said a few minutes ago, and I was bragging on him the other day to my people, what he said in the last meeting that you had. We've done this 4 times. There's so many people in our county that work for the county who are disgusted that we're doing a pay study. And the reason for that is because every time we do a pay study, we never follow it through. You guys are being as tight as you can, that's your job. But when it comes down to it in the end, it ends up being so tight that we don't even fix the pay for everybody. We just put a Band-Aid on it. My chief deputy just retired after 30 years with this agency and was, it's a shame of what he was making. And there's so many people that are saying, we lost 2 SR. We have now, and I hate to even say this because there's media in here, but we have 4 schools that don't even have officers. We should be extremely proud that our county has an officer in every single one of our schools.
And grateful.
But we have 4, excuse me?
And grateful.
Oh, absolutely. And we have that because of the support of our commissioners and our support of our school. But here's the problem. Those 4 people, 2 of those people, we invested 6 and 7 years in those officers. And these are not rookie officers. I cannot hire somebody straight out of BLET and put them in a school. You do not want a rookie officer in the school system. But we've got 6 and 7 years invested in these 2 officers that left. And they left for an agency within our own county making $7,000, $6,000 more a year. So you might as well take that money that we put to invest in him and train him and picked up the garbage can and thrown it in it, because that's exactly what we just wasted.
So my last point.
Sorry I'm going on, but I'm passionate about it.
Hey, look, I appreciate that. So I guess, and I clarified this with Derek, but the funds that you don't use on these salaries, they go back into the fund balance. Am I right on that, Derek?
They roll into fund balance at year end, but in the very next year with the new budget, they'll be appropriated into
the new budget.
Yeah.
So, like my point on the looking at this chart with the fund balance, LGC recommends 8%. I'm sorry, the minimum is 8% fund balance. We have 51%. But to me, Mr. Tate, it seems like we have 8 or 10 weeks of vacation and we're not using it. And maybe I'm wrong in thinking that. I know it's nice to have a nice surplus.
We have a county. We set it at 25%.
25% of the commissioners, before none of us, Josh, set a limit that we would not below 25% without a vote of this commission board to change that. 8% is the minimum now, and that's about to change. That's about to go to 15% to 8%.
They'll start
But
sending
we're at
letters.
25% in Macon County.
Well, that's the minimum, but right now we're at 51%.
But we can only use, we have to, 25% has to be remaining in the fund balance.
So I guess
go below that.
So what I'm saying is it's a testament to the county manager for being on target with all his, all the budgets.
And this took years to do that, Josh.
It has taken. So it's not saying anything bad about it. I'm just saying it's nice to have a nest egg, but at some point in time,
It is. Well,
at some point in time, there's a lot of money.
Josh, there's also tremendous financial value to that. It's like our bonds that we just went through. If we were sitting at 25% versus 50, we'd have probably been sitting at a 2.5% versus a 1.9
or whatever.
1.9. Yeah.
And on a lot of interest, that's a lot of money.
There's advantages to that. It's a deep subject. Yeah,
Like I said,
absolutely.
pardon my inexperience, but thank you for your time.
No,
That's,
it's not, we like the questions being
Thanks,
answered. We don't want
I
to
appreciate the question.
Yeah.
I promised to be transparent, so there it
You know,
is.
that's, we want to be transparent on this board with everything, so if you got questions, we want you to ask them.
Because the sheriff's standing here, I've had the opportunity to be the liaison for a lot of years, and me and Robbie and I and his former chief deputy, who's Andy Shields, has served this county tremendously for over 30 years. But to do what most people in this room, and especially in this county, have no idea what this sheriff's department does. They really don't, Sheriff. And to be that short on people, and I don't know what the answer is. I do think, Lord, if when you put on a bulletproof vest, you're in a different category than the carpenter's helper that I look for, or Josh's tree climber. When you wear a bulletproof vest work, you're in a different category.
I was asked this morning, Facebook is used a lot, we use Facebook a lot, and somebody asked me, why don't you advertise on Facebook like some of these other counties are doing about positions available? And I'll be honest with you, I'm embarrassed to try to put some information out there and encouraging somebody to come, because the first thing that they ask is how much you pay an hour. And you don't go into law enforcement for the money, there's no doubt about it. But it's embarrassing when you see McDonald's and Arby's and all these other places advertising at a higher rate than what you're paying. And that's why I don't do it. I'm just praying that this
Hopefully
pays
it'll be solved here real soon, so yeah.
I feel you.
KFC's got a real sign board.
Get a Republican back in there.
A good question, don't.
No, I'm ready to go on to school.
Okay.
Thank you, Derek, Lori, the team that put this budget together. It'll be a good one if we don't fiddle with it too much.
Go ahead. Anybody want to recess for 5 minutes?
Not really.
Not really? Okay.
Let's roll.
We'll keep going. Derek, can you tell us what, just offhand, what you put in contingency for this year? 100,000, okay. I just looked back through it there real quick and I didn't see it, but what's it under?
Non-departmental.
Non-departmental, okay.
Page 39,
Been running 3 months.
100,000. Right now, just to recap, and if we could, all these things like that everyone's mentioned, if we could go.
We need to know, I've got a notes here. I've got Burningtown, I've got Otto, I've got the Forest Service, I've got schools, I've got the library, I've got Nikwasi, and I've got the Cowee school.
Yes, that's what I've got. That matches up.
Yeah.
So, okay.
That's what I've got as well.
We're gonna vote on them as a lump.
I think one at a time.
I think we need to go through each one at
Yeah.
a time, and what it does is gives Lori direction for putting her
Putting the final budget
final
ordinance
budget together. Yeah, that's correct.
Mhm.
And we ran into it last year. I think we had 2 budgets.
Yeah, because of the reopening Macon fund.
That's right.
Don't have that this year, thank God.
So what do? We vote on those tonight? When do we get the final budget?
Well, what will happen is if y'all don't want to have another work session, if you're gonna be ready to approve it Tuesday night, Tuesday night, I'll bring you a budget ordinance. I mean, I'll try to get it to you in email before then, but the only thing the budget product won't change except for anything that y'all say to put in tonight, you know what I mean? So, that final budget ordinance would be presented Tuesday night.
Okay.
It's Tuesday.
And I don't, Derek, I truly appreciate what y'all do putting this thing. That's notebook is a pile of work. That line item. And I don't feel worthy to come up here at night and nitpick this thing and change 2 or 3 line items. It's just, I just think that's kind of a slap in your face, but I'm good with the budget. You did what we asked you to do. No tax increase. Stay within this number. You've done it. And you've done it. I appreciate it. And I'm not going to piddle with it. There's things in it that I don't like, but appreciate what y'all do as a team.
All right, we'll wait on Commissioner Bill to get back, but my recommendation is that we take each fire department separately, because they're really not they're part of our budget, but they're not part of our piggy bank that we're trying to work out of. So I think we work through those separately, and then we'll talk about the others, because a good example is the Forest Service. They're asking for basically $8,500 more dollars. Seems like a no-brainer. We give it to them. Okay, so where do we take that from? Do we go ahead and pull it out of contingency? Do we take it from my pay? I don't know.
What was your recommendation?
That way it'll be zero.
What was your recommendation? That blindsided me. I didn't know anything about the fire department. I mean, the Forest Service. What was your recommendation on that?
I would like to say that, I think that it's just a state agency like that, it is a shame that they can't have the autonomy to function within their budget. In other words, if they have lapsed salary, that they can't function within their budget to meet the needs of the community, that it's that hamstrung at the state. That, to me, that is a gross, and it's not their fault. It's an example of inefficiency at the state level. But with the money left on the table, it's like when you're going through the budget process and your child asks you for $10 to go to school for lunch money. She's bringing you home $5 every day, and then she starts asking for $20. That's what I draw it back to. But if they can't function, if they can't move that money around out of there, then like Lori said, that we can. There's a way to skin that cat. This money that we have left over each year, like I said, in 2015 there was $4,600, 2016 $8,900, 2017 $14,000, 2018 $15,000. There's $30,000 left in there this year. Granted, some of it's paid in arrears, but the $8,400 is what they're asking for. Addition, and I think that's right, then I would recommend appropriating it from fund balance, because you're just basically giving them their money that rolled into fund balance back into their budget.
Yeah.
So that and
What a shell game.
a conversation
Take it out of your left pocket and put it in your right pocket.
a conversation with the state as to why that they can't have more flexibility within their contract with the state, because they do, like as they were saying tonight, they provide us an excellent service.
Oh, absolutely.
Those folks do a great job, and
absolutely.
It's not that we're trying to keep anything of the money that we're appropriating to them from them. We want to give that to them. So there's more than one way to do that, and if the board is so inclined, then we would be happy, to appropriate, because there's a 99.9% chance that they're going to roll more money than the $8,490 that they're requesting into fund balance. So really, it's a shell game, as the chairman said. So we're not out nothing doing that out of fund balance.
So is everybody in agreement with that?
Yes.
Yes. Aye. Raise your hand so I can see it there. All right.
That's
so
easy.
Forest Service. Next item's library. I don't disagree with Commissioner Bill's point of the fact that since I've been a commissioner, I don't think we've given the library an increase at all in the 10 years, and expenses go up, this, that, and the other. So I understand where they're coming from. I also understand that I always get in trouble every time I say this from somebody on the library board, that we spend more per person in Macon County for the libraries than the surrounding counties in the Clark County Regional Library System, according to the stats that I've been given. The question is from my perspective, is I would love to give them the funds. I know it would be spent in good use, but where do we come up with them? How do you handle that? Because that's not a one-time expense, it's recurring.
That's recurring.
But the
So
difference
how do you
between
handle
us and the other counties, around us, Jackson and Swain, is we have 3 libraries. They don't. We have 3 libraries to staff, and if it wasn't for some good donations from Highlands, it would be even more. And they have to staff them, and it's just like everywhere else. Their pay rate is way below what KFC and that bonus is paying. And these are good people that greet a lot of. A library is still important to a community, very important. And we've got good folks that work in the library that want to do the best in all of our libraries, that try to help our folks, especially our outlying folks. during the pandemic, they really showed their worth, the libraries did. So, I think we're going to have to discuss later on, when you get to the big topic of the high school, if there's going to be a tax increase to that magnitude, then these small things that's going to be reoccurring should be implemented there, Mr. Chairman.
Sure, okay. Point taken, so just from what I'm gathering, no action until we discuss.
I think all these things, it's not in the budget unless Derek has got a magic.
I hear you.
And he don't.
I hear you. All right, so that'll take us through Nikwasi and Cowee School on the same items. School systems,
Now, we're gonna do the,
You mean the budget that we have in front of us now?
Yes, not the schools yet, just the budget.
Derek, remind us of the total increase is 16%, correct?
Yeah, about
1 point,
1.6 million.
total.
And again, that's on, if you want to reflect back in my budget message, there are pages 20 through 22. I kind of highlight where we're at now.
What page? I'm sorry, Derek.
20 pages 20 through 22.
I read it today, I can't remember.
Jimmy, did we do the library thing, or we'll do that individually? Or?
We decided to hold for now.
Oh.
Nothing, yep.
Oh.
Yeah.
So the 1
Sorry, I
point,
didn't take a vote on that, but we
is
decided.
it 1.4?
1.6.
1.6. And that's 100% reoccurring money.
Yes.
And the way that Dr. Baldwin explained it to us when he was speaking is that most of that increase is for positions, correct? Is all of it for positions, Dr. Baldwin?
I would say with the exception of that $50,000 contract for maintenance.
The rest of it is for positions. We hope it's positions.
Yeah, that request did not take into account any benefit increases, the utility increases that we learned about today. There's nothing built into that budget.
Well, here's the facts on that, Mr. Chairman. That's $0.015 on the tax rate. Right there, just for the schools. So just for that portion of the schools, for the 1.6 million.
1.6.
That's 2 pennies.
2 pennies, almost exactly.
For
The 1.6 million operational increase would be 2 pennies.
Yeah, that's 2 cents right there without talking about anything else. So I think that's the discussion you have to have first.
What I was saying earlier is since they've got the money coming in from the federal government, without giving them the flexibility between operations and capital. What do we give each one of them, Derek, offhand?
Capital, we
into
give
capital?
1.150, 1.15 million. Operating expenses, we give 8.732 million. So you're saying then, if you can use some of the
Well, I don't know. I'm just tossing the softball up there. I don't know if it's a good idea or a bad idea. I'm just
We can
trying to
use the
think through
ESSER
it,
funding
so.
for capital or operations. So that,
Okay.
as long as it meets those 3 criteria.
But if you use it for capital, that's firm, brick and mortar type stuff.
It's one and done.
Yeah, it's one and done. But if you use it for the other one, and 2024, then that's reoccurring monies or.
Potentially.
Yeah,
Potentially.
no monies.
See, that's the thing, there's so many unknowns you don't really know. Dr. Baldwin, you said in your fund balance you had 1 point,
Today, we have 1.3.
now you gotta remember that's Macon County taxpayer dollars, too, the fund balance is, so. I mean, but everybody needs, I remember when it was this.
Yes. And
Very well.
part of the reason that we still have 1.3 is because of those program enhancement positions. We don't know how many we're going to need in the spring. And we won't know until September the 1st how many we'll actually need. They give us a number of program enhancement positions in the spring. We apply those or not in the fall. We've been able to hold on to some of those positions up until 21-22 when that huge need comes into play due to the full implementation of the K-3 class size limit law. So we won't have that moving forward.
I remember so well the driver education fiasco. Did you happen to remember that, Dr.
And the
Long?
teacher assistant. That was the same
Yeah.
with the teacher assistant.
You can't make it up. So that's the,
All right, we'll hang with no changes as of now. We'll circle back to that here in just a few minutes when we talk about the high school. Let's talk about Burningtown. Paul, that's your district.
You know, I appreciate what Dwight's saying, the service they provide. 1 out of 12, or 2 out of 12 asking for an increase now by the same fuel, out of same maintenance issues. I'm not for any tax increase at all.
I'd have to speak in favor of it. Mr. Chairman, Burningtown is like the rest of these volunteer fire departments. They still offer the best service for the money of any taxpayer dollars, and they're asking for a very small increase. Burningtown has had its struggle retaining firemen. They're doing well now. The leadership seems to be in control. If Warren was here, I believe he would agree that small of increase in the whole lot of things with the folks in Burningtown. I think that's reasonable, and I think Mike done a good job explaining why he needs the increase.
They got 25% fund balance, and in a $240,000 budget, you can find some funds in there. I'm one man.
What was the increase?
Half a meal.
Half a million.
It's
$12,000,
$12,000 is off for you. No,
It surprised, I mean, I'm speaking bluntly, it surprised me that they requested that minimal of an increase.
With $60,000.
With that much money in the bank and with revaluation coming up here real soon, so. Okay, I guess let's take a vote on it. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Raise your hands, please. Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Those signify by saying no. Aye.
That was for
Burningtown. Otto's the big one.
You're the liaison there, Mr. Chairman.
That's it. They need an increase. I just don't know if they need an increase that big. I'm in favor of an increase, but that's a tremendous increase to happen at one time.
But speaking, go ahead, Paul.
No,
I'm pondering. I'm going to listen to y'all's ideas too. So,
you know, I appreciate they're in a bind. They got a leaking building. Of course, we have a leaking gym in high school in Highlands for 12 years, but you know, they've got a leaking building, an outdated facility. But this concept of turning rural volunteer fire departments into semi-full-time fire departments, I think is it's just unreasonable to me. That's not the charter of a rural fire department, and the five meal tax increase is phenomenal. I was hoping they were coming back with a scaled down model of something, and I couldn't vote to increase anybody's taxes 5%.
you wouldn't be in favor of any tax increase for them?
No, and you hear this saying, well, they got to pay their fair share. Who sets the fair share? The government does. So, what is fair? It's not the matter of how much money you got; it's how you use it. They're the behind, right?
What bothers me, Mr. Chairman, is that the last time they were here, it was 3.7, something like 3.6, 3.7 million, and now it's 5 point. So with our millage rate, you come out to $300 something a square foot. They bought the land. You got to see what they've invested too. They own the land. They do have all the infrastructure in. It is going to cost them money to sprinkle it, about 4 times what it would cost if they had city water. But do they need, what's the basic need? I think they need an increase, I really do. And I think they need to put some money back into this building they've got for nothing from the Otto Community Building. But that's a different subject, but I would listen to your recommendation, Mr. Chairman, as you're the liaison. I think that we can give them, I think they have plenty of land for an expansion. I'm not, if it was anywhere close to the original 3 point something, I would go for it. I would be full on board. But nearly $400 a foot, for a lot of it's not hated. I know it costs a lot of money to build a specialty building. I do know that. But I think they do have a place for expansion. I know it's going to cost them more when they come back and do that. It would be wonderful that if we had plenty of money, but that kind of increase on one community at one time. I've talked to several from down there, and they did all support it. The ones I talked to, every one of them said, that don't bother us. That it's a real bargain. But at the end of the day, it comes down to this board and what we want to do for the people of that neighborhood. I think it's a little much at one time, Mr. Chairman. They can come back next year maybe and hit it again, but if they could have stuck with the original thing around 3.6 or whatever it was, I would fully support that. But now, when you had $2 million in 1 year, which I'm not saying that that's right or wrong, but I think it's more that community can handle.
I guess I hear what you're saying, but I have allegiance to the community. They had input on this. To go by there and see that the trucks and stuff won't fit inside the building. I just feel like the community had an opportunity to give their input, and with this increase, I hear y'all construction people talk about this increase that's happened. It's not going to be cheaper next year. And so I think with the community input that they verified in here, that I would have to go with this. I'd have to vote with the boys from Otto. I think the community had an input into it. And it seems to me from the input they had there and talking to some of the people there, they feel like they can handle the increase. I think it's tough too, but it's going to be tougher next year. And that area is going to grow from our broadband plan that we put together here. That's supposedly is going to be the main area down through there, in business-wise and homes. So, me personally, I don't feel comfortable voting against the people of the community if that's what they've chosen to do.
I'm sure residents.
I'll keep it short and sweet. I do live down there. I hate to sound, I'm busy. I've never heard of the meeting. I wish I would have known.
What surprised me
when he said 2 people, I just feel like I would like to go to the community and say, hey, look, you guys put me in here. What do you think? I feel like if this all of a sudden was sprung on them, they'd say, holy cow, what? I feel like we're going from a 1973 Chevrolet with 700,000 miles on it to a 2021 Cadillac right here, like just overnight. I'm looking for a nice Chevrolet, just a good truck, So
How long we had the fire department?
that's where I'm kind of right in the middle. I do think they need something better. They need something better.
So
I don't think the 5 point something million is really hard to justify.
trying to gain consensus on this board. It sounds like there might be consensus on this board to give some approval for an increase, but maybe not to the extent that he's asking. So then we're testing the breeze. My thought on it is that if we give them an increase, it gives them an opportunity to put some funds away and maybe start. All we're doing is dragging their feet just another year is what we're doing.
Yeah,
So,
but I
don't know how you come up with what that rate is. I have .10 on my mind just for some strange reason, but there's no logic behind that.
Repeat that again.
I have .10 on my mind, but there's no logic in that. That's just that's plucking a feather out of the air.
And that would be 2/3 of what they're asking, right?
No, that'd be more than they're asking. I don't know what.
Be right at
We
1/3.
could split it in half of what they're
It's
asking.
about,
Is there a county average?
they're
I
asking
mean,
for
what's-
5, a little over 5, that would be giving them 3 cent.
Give them how much, Lori? 33
3 cent.
cents?
If we gave, if it was,
What's the cost of market?
if the millage was 10 cent, you'd be giving them like a 3 cent and 16/100. And they're asking for like the 5 cent.
What's the average?
Oh, I don't know.
You just have to add these up and divide it.
Well, it's hard to do that because you've got Highlands who's really, really low but has
They have such a high tax base, yeah.
had tax base.
Yeah,
And then you go to Burningtown and some of these outlying communities who have,
yeah.
the tax base is not that high, so their fire tax is going to be a little bit more. So
Just
that's
for
hard to
your-
compare.
Just for your information, I don't have a dog in this fight. I'm not for the tax rate or against it, but just say someone had a $200,000 home in that community. The 5.43 cent tax increase will be $108.60 a year increase on their tax bill for a $200,000 home. You divide that by 365 days, that's 30 cents a day. So to me, when I think about tax increases, I like to break it down in year and days. Just so, anyway, like I said, I don't have a dog in the fight, but just some information.
You're doing the increase, what is the overall, their millage? Is that their total
That was
6?
On 200.
that was the increase only, yeah.
That was the increase only?
Yeah.
So, could you do the math again on
Yeah,
the
on the-
existing millage?
On the .0684?
Yeah,
Or do you want it plus the new rate? Like
Plus
for-
the new rate, yeah, the total.
You want the total?
yeah.
Okay.
The existing and the proposed
Gotcha.
Well,
one
that'd be plus 106, or minus 106.
will be fine.
245.40 a year for a $200,000 home, 67 cents a day. That's the current rate plus the increase to give you the new millage rate.
And that's only on your home, you've got it on all your personal property too, on your
Yeah.
trucks, your automobiles.
Again, I don't have a dog
This
in the
may
fight.
be one of those
but-
things, Mr. Chairman, we have to look at if we, again, decide on the high school. Because that could be wound up in this conversation too.
When were the public hearings? Did he say? Do you remember?
For this budget,
No, for this,
Talking about
the
for
public
Otto.
hearings for the Otto Fire Department.
He advertised them in the paper.
it was advertised in the paper.
Okay.
Nobody reads the paper.
What's your thoughts, Mr. Chairman?
I'm thinking we might split the difference between what you decide.
And ask them to reduce the size of the building and go ahead and start
Well,
construction.
I would expect, I would hope that Josh in that time could
Said I'd be happy
meet
to
with
go
them,
with
if you don't mind with them, and just meet with them and look over it with them and see, so. So what would that be, Lori, if we split the two?
So you want to cut the .0543 in half?
No.
No.
The difference between .1224 and, oh, yes, .1224 and .0684, whatever that increase would be.
See, now the thing Warren provided or whoever, it said .1227.
He said .1224 tonight.
I know, but I think the book says .1227. That's what I've been basing everything on.
the highest. in the county.
Yeah, the book says
Second highest.
.1227.
Go from the lowest to the highest. and it doesn't matter.
I think Warren did this spreadsheet. Where's the book?
Yeah, here. Biden.
Let's look at it real quick. Because I noticed that too when he spoke. He said the .1224.
And while she's looking, you got the spreadsheet there?
Yes, I do.
It's actually reflected in there that West Macon and Scaly have a tax reduction.
No, we're not proposing a reduction.
No, but I mean the way it's spread out here.
Like I said, Warren did that, so I don't know, but
Go ahead.
I don't think any of them are.
Same question.
I don't think any of them
I had
are.
that same
You should have
question.
asked that when Warren
Yeah.
was here, but I'm pretty sure Jimmy Team told me when he dropped off these
He
notebooks,
said there was not.
nobody is asking for a tax decrease.
Oh, they weren't asking, it was just the math. That-
It was their math, yeah.
Okay, so,
I'm about ready to jump up and shout.
well, see, now this is different.
Yeah, it's
This
different.
sheet
The
has,
two-
this sheet here has .1228. The spreadsheet has .1227. So,
And he said 1.224 tonight.
so who knows? I don't know.
What did in his message,
It's
what did he-
effectively about 5 cents. I mean, it's a little over, it's about almost 5.
in his message, what did he say?
He said 0.1224 increase.
In his message?
Oh, in his speech tonight.
Yeah, let's not see what he said, let's see what he wrote.
Are you talking about his little memo?
So much for separate.
Yeah.
.1228.
Get that down. Right.
That's what it says in it.
Yeah.
It's on the
It says
second
in the
page, right?
message. Yeah.
So that's what we need to go by, .1228. That's what the chief put in right there.
Yeah, in the memo, yeah.
So half of that,
It's roughly 0.954 at 1224, so 0.955, 0.0955. So my 0.10 wasn't far off.
So he's going up
Right on the money.
5.44. So you're wanting to give them half of the increase they're asking for, is that what you're
Well,
saying?
that was just my suggestion.
It'd be 0.02, 0.0272. So the increase would be minus 0.0684.
if somebody, does anybody know, I wish one was here.
0.5, 0.02,
Franklin Fire Department's building,
0.02.
they're building a new fire station right now as we speak. I wonder what that came out of square foot. Does anybody know the answer to that?
I don't know. I know it's minimal because they're only doing storage space.
The minimal stuff. and-
Yeah. It's just a garage, basically.
But that would give us the architect told me there's only 2332 heating in this. And I know prices are crazy and they'll adjust, but still, $5.8 million, I know it costs a lot. I know there's specialty things to do in the fire department. The concrete has to be like 2 foot thick when they park it. I know all that stuff, but
10 inches.
So
That's wrong.
half of their increase request is 0.0272. So their new millage rate would be 0.0956. So almost back to the dime you were suggesting earlier.
Can we get a motion on the same, or can we make it?
So I'll make a motion that we adjust their fire tax rate to 0.10.
0.10. Got a motion on the floor. I'll second it. Any discussion?
Well, again,
Go ahead.
if you do this, are we just shagging them down to a minimum building that's not gonna be worth?
That's a good question.
What are we doing to them here?
That's a good
Gonna
question.
build a half a house or? you gonna build a
No,
whole house?
we're giving them a big enough increase so they can
It
put a
gives
well
them a
down
budget.
payment down. So
When you, it's just like building your own house, you have to have a budget to start with. Now, if you want to surpass that budget, that's up to you. But you have, this gives them a real good budget to work with.
I think it does too. So.
I'm not saying it's right or wrong, or 5.8 is too high, but I've not saw the plans, I've not.
As he said, he'll come back and visit us next
I mean,
year.
does it have to be decided right now? Can they come back Tuesday and have more discussion with the department? And just, have more, I feel like.
Well, if we're gonna have another work session, yeah. If not, if we're not gonna have no more work
Our
sessions.
meeting is
then-
Tuesday, and we're hoping to approve the budget Tuesday night.
And last year they came and did proposal and I'm the one who made the motion not to, because of the pandemic year. So I feel like
So their millage rate's gonna be 10?
10 cent, yeah, I
10
think that's
mils.
kind of what's on the floor. I don't think
That's
y'all
what the
voted
motion
yet.
is.
That's in essence all they've requested, they just want 11.5, 11.8.
I mean, I think this gives them, with what they have now, Mr. Chairman, and given this, it gives them, well, we know we got this X amount of dollars. We've done this much to the building. Let's see if we can make it fit to at least get us underway. I think that would do it.
So I'm thinking the same as you. I mean, I agree. Like I say, if not, as he said, he'll come back and visit us next year, as he did last year when we declined him last year.
Yeah.
So.
But still, even at .10, that's a hefty increase for them citizens.
That's right.
They might support it till they get that tax bill.
I'm just thinking about all the people working the plant down there. I mean, that's just a lot of old, retired people on fixed income.
But that's still the cheapest tax rate, Josh.
Is it? That's what I'm not sure of.
Still.
And that fire book is the first page.
Is it? I'm just looking at West Franklin's at where was that?
You can see where Otto is.
1076, 103, 105, 105, 108, 111. Yeah, 111.
This chart's the best thing in the world to go by. And it shows you, like Highlands is over here they're the lowest. And there's a reason for that. There's a reason Scaly Mountain and Nantahala is the highest.
Maybe they can stockpile money and prices come down.
And then the hell's not the best.
I guess Mountain Valley is the highest.
Hell is the highest.
The lowest, and they got the lowest tax base. So we're ready to go.
Probably the smallest district too.
Yeah.
I don't know, that's a guess. But any further comments, questions? All in favor, raise your hand and signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All 4-1. Thank you, guys. But respect the fact that we can respectfully disagree and have a good conversation. I enjoy serving with all y'all. Good opinions. All right, so that's it. So next item on the agenda is discussion regarding the new high school. Dr. Baldwin, I'm sure you kept up to speed from the newspapers and social media and everything else, but this board decided that we did like the plan that was presented to us, and that we would like to move forward with a new high school, new Franklin High School on the existing campus. The way it was explained to us, it can be construction, a lot of things can happen there without too much intrusion to the existing student base. So now it's up to this board to figure out how we're going to pay for it. There's been a lot of ideas and thoughts that I'm aware of. I'm just going off the top of my head. I know Cherokee County just got a tremendous grant from the state to help them handle theirs, so there's that opportunity with us. I have made a phone call to Senator Corbin, and we will meet next week to discuss, or his first convenience is what we discussed, so we mentioned next week, to discuss that. There is the opportunity for, which I am in favor of, a quarter-cent sales tax increase. Derek, can you give me a number off that, what that would provide? Off this year's numbers, roughly?
Rough estimate, about 1.7 million a year.
1.7 million per year.
That has to go to a referendum, correct?
Yep. Even number election year. Next year.
So I would like to see that put on a referendum. Again, this is my personal opinion. I'd like to see it put on a referendum. Jackson County's already at 7%. Swain's already at 7%. Is Clay at 7 too? Right, might go, might not, but at least that offers, to me, it's a no-brainer, because if we're going to do this anyway, I would rather some of our tourists help pay for this that are passing through versus weighing it all on the backs of our ad valorem tax. So we've got that. Then the last thing is a tax increase, which I think is inevitable in any scenario you look at of how we afford this. So I'd ask our manager, knowing this, what I know off the top of my head, to provide us some numbers. I think it's been mentioned a couple times tonight what a 1 cent tax increase is, or millage rate, just kind of what it.
It's about $800,000. If you're looking, we ran it on 90 million. We got our financial advisors with Davenport to run it under the same scenario that we ran the middle school renovations under at that time. And in 2023, fully loaded principal and interest, assuming a 20-year term, 4% interest rate, you're looking at 6.63 cents on the tax rate.
That's to fund it all.
That's the ad valorem rate.
6.1.
6.3.
So as again, in my scenario, in my perfect world, I would hope we could get some grant money from this, from the state. Similar to Cherokee County, I would hope that again, my pie in the sky wish list, if I can get lucky with it, we would get that. We would get a quarter-cent tax sales tax increase on the referendum, and then maybe just a very minimal ad valorem tax increase to handle this. So the questions, I mean, those are my thoughts. If anybody has any thoughts other on funding,
They're great
I'm open
thoughts,
here,
Mr.
so-
Chairman, but the holes in it is this, we're a tier 3 county.
Yeah.
Our options, our chances of getting a grant like Cherokee, which is a tier 1 county, and how we got to a tier 3 and they dropped to a tier 1, I'm confused on that. But I think our chances are slim with the money that's available. We might get some, but I don't think we're going to get a lot. As far as the referendum goes, a referendum is fine, but I think it would get beat 7-3 in Macon County.
it might, but at least we put it out there.
Well, but we put it out there before. This ain't new. A referendum was never passed in Macon County.
When was it put out?
It was put out, how many years you been there, Dr. Baldwin?
I think this is my 8th year.
It was put out 10 years ago.
It wasn't put out when I was commissioner, that I remember.
Yeah, it was put out and got beat like a tom.
It wasn't 10 years ago. It was longer than that.
Might have been 12. Our previous superintendent was 2 superintendents ago.
Dr. Brigman
Yeah.
did.
Yeah. And he got beat like a tom-tom. And there's never been a referendum passed in Macon County. Remember they put a referendum out for the middle grade school for cafeteria when they didn't build a cafeteria.
What does that tell you?
Tells you that a lot of folks here that forget that somewhere down the line, somebody paid taxes for their kids to go to school. And they have forgotten that. That's what it tells me.
Can I ask our county manager one thing?
Sure.
We looked at a graph the other day
Yeah, I made
that showed what our region, the state region.
copies of it. I didn't have it on there.
I had the opportunity to work with him and David before, and I saw this graph. Then I saw it again the other night. And I think what I'm asking, if we do go up that 6.63, what does that change here? Is Macon County still the lowest?
Yeah, there's extras.
Brittany, something up there. Jake. Can you give us a dialogue on this?
Yeah, it just shows us, that's where Macon County's tax rate is compared to the region, our 7-county region, as well as the average tax rate across the state of North Carolina in fiscal year 21. That tax rate in the state of North Carolina is 0.6755 on the 100. Average tax rate in 7-county western regions 0.4628 on the 100. Macon County is 0.3747 on the 100.
Are there any floaters with that, fire tax, et cetera?
No. That's just straight ad valorem tax rate.
That's ad valorem, so they didn't consider anything. And some counties don't have fire taxes, we have fire taxes.
That's just
Jackson
straight,
doesn't.
that's straight ad valorem. That's how they,
So it's misleading.
yeah, Office of State Budget Management.
But if we put in that 6.63,
And figure your fire tax in there.
and the fire tax,
Because that's a millage rate. Anything that's a millage rate is valued on property. Whether it be real estate, personal property. So our property taxes are just, our property taxes is 37.47. My millage rate on my fire tax is 10 point something, so there I'm at 47. You know, and that's on my property, personal and real. So it winds up close to 50 mils. So this can be misleading, these graphs can, on where we rate statewide.
Right, and that's why the title of that graph is specifically property
Taxes.
Yeah.
Not, yeah, that's real property. It's not personal properties.
but if we looked at it from the title standpoint, and if we increased our ad valorem tax 6.63, and you're up to 44.10 or 44.10.
Property tax.
Property tax, ad valorem tax. And so with that, even with that, we would still be the lowest within this region.
You'd be below the regional average. You wouldn't be the lowest in the region.
Okay. Now, we're number 3 in the state at this time, I believe, with ad valorem tax.
Yes.
What percentage of the money that comes into our budget is ad valorem compared to what Paul was saying, property tax? There's no comparison on that. I mean, ad valorem is what the money's at.
56% of our budget's ad valorem.
Yeah, that's where the money is.
That's what I read there the other night.
So that's counting property tax on your property and on your personal property.
It's 56%.
56% of the overall budget.
But if you break,
But now, it does not count the fire tax.
No,
Does
because they're
not
in a
flow-
separate fund.
That's in a separate fund. It does not flow through the general fund.
But even if you added all the fire tax millage rates together and multiplied it by the residents, it's very minimal. True?
real property is about
I mean, what's
30 million a year.
I'd have to do the math.
Well, you went to Western to do that?
Real property is about 30 million a year. Fire tax is about 5 million a year.
4.3 million, yeah.
4.3.
Yeah.
So compared to ad valorem,
Compared, yeah, that would be safe to say.
it's
compared
not,
to that.
yeah, it's not minimal to no taxes.
It's not minimal.
No.
But it's, but that's where the money comes from the county.
Sure.
If you're gonna do a project like this, you're looking at, you're gonna have to raise ad valorem taxes. And or, you're gonna have to do both, Mr. Chairman. If you want to put it on a referendum in this year, I don't know if we got, if we can do it this
It's
year.
gotta be next year.
It'd have to be in 20,
Gotta be an even year.
Gotta
22.
be even numbered.
it'd have to be in 22. But the reason, only reason Jackson County, they've tried it, a lot of counties have tried it. If you see how they do it, they pick a special time when to put that tax rate on. They done it during a runoff, didn't they? They put in a runoff election, I think.
Eric, you probably know.
You remember, Eric?
I do not.
Well, that's what they did. And they had all the Western Carolina students vote. So that, because they know if they put it out there just like we would, it would get smoked.
Put it on the general.
But you're still talking about raising tax $6.63
Cents.
cents.
And Roy gave that example. What would that do to a $200,000 house?
Let's see, times .0663. $132.60 a year,
For
or
200?
36 cents a day.
And what would that do? Since Highlands, if you look at the numbers, Mr. Chairman, Highlands is probably upwards of 55 to 60% of our total tax
It was
base.
52 at last election. but
It's more than that
It's
now.
more than that now.
I'd say it's closer to 60, maybe. I bet you.
I don't know.
So that's, what do you think?
You wait till the next revaluation, it's gonna be 70.
Yeah. It'll be 70% of our total taxes. So since you represent Highlands,
Oh, that's what I said last meeting. I'm the one, y'all don't have any pressure. I'm the one getting a beat on the chin up there.
But I still think that.
but they also want a new high school. The ones I've talked to, they said, yeah,
No, they want a new athletic field.
and Highlands. But they're not really totally against the new high school program.
No,
they're
it's
not.
needed. No, absolutely. And I haven't heard
And the
anybody
arts
speak against
program,
that
they
at
want
all.
to,
I have not heard anybody speak against that at all.
no.
I think one thing that goes through my mind though, about a new high school,
Mr. Chairman, can you excuse me just a minute?
about a new high school is that your high school is a signatory institution that represents Macon County educational philosophy. If you go south on 441 or north, Franklin High School is the only school you'll see when coming into town. You can't see the early college, you can't see the middle school. You can get a glance at Cartucket J and stuff like that. But Franklin High School is a signature of what we are here and what we represent. more people see Franklin High School due to athletics, all those things. Franklin High School has a, we need to make sure it represents what we are, because that's what people see when they come here. And if we keep shortchanging Franklin High School and the development of it, it's going to be a negative representation in my field. Having been the principal there for 21 years, you have to work hard at that school now to make it be a signature school, and it's hard to do because you don't have the facilities. But what I've seen in this drawing, concept 2, we can make Franklin High School a signature school, and it can say, hey, that community there really invested in their high school. Education is important here. And so I'm a taxpayer too, but I want that school, I'd like to see a new school there, and that concept too, and for us to have a name within this region of we are promoters of education in fairness to our students. Our young people need to have a signature school, high school, and other places do. I'll never forget when son went to Western, what he said was, because our school facilities did not have the internet, the broadband, things like that we need now, more of, better, he would go into a classroom and sit down beside someone from Charlotte, because the people from Charlotte had their upgrades and stuff. And so he would go into a classroom and make sure he looked around to see where those students were from in order to be updated or be in the same realm as the other people are. So I think Franklin High School, it may not be something for us right now, but I'm telling you, for our grandchildren, Paul, the rest of us, 70, it's been pieced together for 70 years. And if you talk to some people in the know, the maintenance people, they'll tell you the infrastructure is terrible. But I think we have an opportunity at this time to enhance, I'm going to call it the AA, the academics and the athletics. And those two pieces go together within a high school. And you have to keep it in balance too. If one of those gets out of balance, it's a tough way. It's a tough road to hoe. So I'm invested in Franklin High School. I think the concept too is fine. Obviously, I may be the only one voting that way. I would vote for us to put a tax piece in place so we build a new high school.
Which Shields, along with that, this was based on $90 million. Would you think we could assume that if that should pass this board, that we could also include a portion of, Dr. Ball, don't know what he's going to get, but his request was 1.4 increase, 1.6, and that included the arts, correct? Do you think that would, let's say in the best case scenario, let's say we got through the high school with 80 million instead of the 90 million. That other, what I'd say would be, money would give us reoccurring expense for a lot of things going forward, because you get to do this one time.
This is it.
This is it.
My duration of my lifetime, I'm sure this is
Just so the board understands too, the assumptions that the financial advisor used was 90 million, but that was issuing the debt in spring of 2023. Okay, so that's 2 years from now, and the first payment wouldn't be due until fiscal year 24. And the tax increase talked about would be in fiscal year '23, not fiscal year '22. But of course, if you think if you're wanting to speed up the process and issue debt a year from now, then yes, you would need that 6.63 cent. So I just want to make sure the board's clear.
Why wouldn't we want, if we're going to raise taxes, why wouldn't we want to do it?
On the
To speed up
underlying
the process.
assumptions.
But you could go ahead and, that would speed up the process. You could put it in a special fund like Lori was saying for the architect and start the processes now.
Yeah, I mean, you could raise taxes now, but a project like this is major. I'll be surprised if we can, maybe I'm wrong, but I'll be surprised if we can issue debt a year from now for it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's possible. But yeah, Derek and I were talking about this, before this meeting, that if you did raise taxes now, like he was saying, the money generated, the extra money generated, we can put in the school capital project fund, go ahead and go through the architect selection, hire the architect. You've got money earmarked to hire the architect, and then see how far we can get down the road. And let's just say, so this is going to raise like $5.3 million, this 6.63 cent roughly. So I don't remember what the architect fees were out of that $88 million, but let's say they're $4 million. Well, that leaves you $1.3 million that you could maybe use as a down payment, or so to speak, that you might not have to borrow $90 million, you might have to borrow 89. I mean, it's not a lot, but you get my point. Or like you said, if you have other uses that you'd like to funnel a piece of it to school operations, whatnot. But yeah, I mean, there's nothing stopping you from raising the taxes now, but I just wanted to make sure you understood these underlying assumptions from the financial advisor or issuing debt spring of 2023.
But if we had an assurance that what's really important to me, of course, is the new high school, but also school nurses, they talked about the mental health. I think going forward, we have like 82 kids now in protective custody, and probably 82 more that's going in. So I think that's, the arts program is wonderful, and I know that, but these kids are going to have some really special help going forward. I guarantee you that. We just assumed Cardinal. Cardinal was the largest LME. Value just assumed that responsibility. So millions of kids, and a lot of them in Macon County is going to be.
Comments from this side, Commissioner Higdon? Go ahead.
Not to challenge the chairman, but did you say we agreed to move along on the school?
We did at our last meeting, yes.
How did we did do that in formals?
We did too, yeah. We agreed to accept that.
4-1.
Yeah.
Oh, was I the one? Not surprising. And the reason for that, the reason I have a lot of one votes is that we just decided one night in the meeting it's time to build high school. Well, I can't buy that, because I'm not opposed to funding education and providing the best of everything, but it's just we're considering encumbering the taxpayers of Macon County. They said $88 million. That didn't include furnishings, content. It's going to be a $100 million project. And as I talked with Dr. Ball about, we're $30 million in debt now for schools, $32 million. This is going to take another $100 million on school debt. That we have a capital improvement plan that we spent good money to develop that did not include educational system. So if we do this in this rapid fire motion we're at, any improvements to county assets and county structures is dead for the next few years. There's just no more. I cannot fathom this board voting to go in debt over $130 million. That's just, it's mind-boggling we're even considering going in. And then the little discussions that we've had about this moving forward and making improvements to Franklin High School, what were our options? Could we look at the current structures that we have? What are our options to make those better? Do we just have to go out and spend $100 million just carte blanche, spur of the moment, without any public input? We have the authority to do that, but the only way that I'm going to support it would be through a referendum. If the citizens of Macon County says, hey, look, let's build a new high school, I'm on board 100%. Whatever it costs, however we fund it, because those taxes are going to hit me too. But as Ronnie said, referendums always fail. Well, there's a reason for that. If the people that represent us, the people that vote us into this office, if they don't have a voice in our actions and what we do, then we're irresponsible. And
That's the reason they elected you, Pop.
Pardon?
That's the reason you were elected, to be that voice.
I was elected to represent them, and that's exactly the only way to know what all of my constituents want is ask them to vote on it. It's not up to 3 members on this board. That's all it takes to encumber us for $100 million. That's not representative of the community, because I can't just sitting here for a couple of months, hey, let's build a new high school. All right, how do we do it? Here, let's raise your taxes. I think it's just a gross example of irresponsibility.
We've worked on the new high school for how many years, Dr. Ball? Never since you've been here. Ever since, goes back to when
2010.
And I asked you when I came on this board, Ronnie, why do we need a high school? And you know what your answer was? That one's old.
And it is.
And I told you to go home and Google Harvard and Yale and see how old those buildings were, 300 years old. Age doesn't have anything to do with it. I'm 72 years old. I'm the same age as the high school.
Across the floor either.
And, but anyway, that's my thoughts on this thing. I'm not opposed to improving educational facilities. But we do the high school, we got to do, I'm hearing East Franklin now and the other schools. I mean, are we just funding the educational system of Macon County, or are we trying to address other issues, a justice center, a courthouse, so many other things that we need to be addressing. So I'm not opposed to improving educational facilities at Franklin High School. I think they're much needed, but I would like to see what the options are. I can't support this just deciding too much we're going to spend $100 million. If it goes to referendum, I'm 100% behind it.
Mr. Young?
Well, talking about the referendum, in response to the 12-year mark, I was just coming out of high school and I still had a flip phone. This new technology and social media, I feel like if the public really knew that building was 72 years old, and if they knew that the gym had a boiler that's failing, there's still, catastrophic failure. I haven't heard anybody oppose once they understand all the issues. I think knowledge is power. So everybody I talk to, when you hear $80-90 million, they gasp. But then when you say, well, if we'd have built it 10-20 years ago, it'd have probably been $55 million. If we build it 10-20 years from now, it's probably who knows? It's pure speculation. So I think knowledge is power. I mean, I do like to have some community input. I think there may be some potential for a hybrid where we could get something kind of going in the interim with, with some track and athletic facilities. I still find the track as a priority. I mean, the track was bad when I was in school. It's not getting any better. So I really want some community involvement. I want to hear from the teachers. I want to hear from, just some seniors in the community, and just hear from the people. And I don't want to rush it. I don't want to spend $100 million and back up and say, we threw that thing together. I want it to be methodical and thought out, and a representation of good leadership with some good, foresight. That's my turn.
All right, my turn. I'm kind of between what Commissioner Shields was saying and what Commissioner Young was saying. I'm right in between the two of them. I don't think I'm for biting off that big of a tax increase tonight, but I'm for a tax increase. I'm thinking we might go ahead and go up just a few cents, not 6 cents. I was thinking more of a 5% increase versus a dramatic one, or even a 7%. And my thoughts on it are is that we take that money and go ahead and hire an architecture firm and go ahead and start the plans, and then we start the discussions, as Commissioner Young was saying. You start putting the plans, you start getting input, and then once we know what we are going for, we have an end to our plans, we have an end to the road of what we're trying to do, that we have all the thoughts from across Macon County in.
we're going to be right into valuation at that point, 2 years down the road. And it's going to be dramatic. County manager and I were discussing the other day, would Jackson County just put $1 billion?
They picked up $1 billion.
I'm expecting Macon County to be very close. And I think then that's when you figure out where to pay for it. And in the meantime, we will also have a time to go for, as Commissioner Higdon said, a referendum. But, I mean, you could pay for it, architects out of fund balance, but we also have some other items in the books that we've already got the ball rolling with SCC, with Nantahala, with the community building. We've got some other stuff we're going to be pulling from that. I keep hearing, I don't know where it comes from, but I keep hearing from our advisors it's not good to pull too much out of fund balance at one particular time. But I really wouldn't mind seeing us moving forward with taking the plans that were presented to us, pursuing them further, and I will support a tax increase if it is to pay for that, if that's what we need to do to pay for that. We all have difference of opinion. I hear you ask, Paul, that's fine.
Lori, I mean, I hate to interrupt.
But I'm in between here.
It's 6.2, you said it raised $5 million a year or $4 million a year?
The 6.63 cents.
Yes,
raised $5.3 million.
A year.
No,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It wasn't there last year, but just now.
Can we not? How much would it cost, Jimmy, to do what you're suggesting? Obviously,
if it's just 5.3 million, Mr. Chairman, it would still cost by the time you pay the architect fees and hire that person, still looking at 4 cents.
Well, how much is the architect's fees? 4 million? That'd be 5 pennies if it's 4 million.
we're not gonna pay the architects 100% up front, though.
No.
We're
But
looking
you
for
can't-
some.
You can't I can't pre-audit a contract if the money's not available and budgeted.
You have to have the money budgeted and have the money available.
I know when Emily Kite was here, you know, she talked about phasing it. I don't recall. She's like, you
She's gonna
know.
start digging dirt in September too. That floored me.
But there was talk of phasing it and, you know, possibly, I can't remember what she called it. It was some kind of study. Because of course there was questions about the souls.
I think she said we'd do that for $60,000.
Yeah, there was some kind of a study. So it just depends on what the pleasure of the board is of.
2-point-something million to go into the National Guard Army, speaking of things that was done on spur of the minute. 2-point-something million there, right?
We haven't,
That horse dead,
actually, we
right?
haven't started defining that yet. We're waiting on SEC to get back with.
It'll be about 2 million or so, we estimated. Then we got $700,000 in Nantahala for the building at the creek.
No. How much?
Jack Morgan said 700 something thousand, didn't he? They tell what Jack came back with?
Renovation cost?
Yeah.
We haven't appropriated anything for that.
No, but that's what he said it was
Building
going to cost to fix it.
$150,000.
That's what it's going to cost to fix it.
We haven't appropriated that. It's $150,000 buying it.
Yeah, but we got to fix it. It ain't a building, all it is a roof. So we got to,
It's a building.
that's money that we got to allow for. These other requests that we have from the school, from the art department to the, especially the school nurses, that's money. So either you're going to have to hit the fund balance pretty hard for reoccurring costs, or, you know, like Jimmy says, you can phase it out, but I think the lowest you can phase it to is, you know, it's probably 5 cents, Mr. Chairman. I don't know.
It's just hard for me to up ad valorem when there's 51% in the fund balance. To me, it's like when you up the mill rate.
But there's not 51% in there, Josh. That's the thing about
According
it.
to what I've calculated, and Mr. Manager, if you correct me
What
if
is
I'm
the
wrong.
fund balance?
It's 51%. It's in your budget
Estimated,
message.
yeah, estimated.
But to take the
That's
total,
25 million.
Like, I just have a problem
28.
up in the mill rate with how much money we have in our debt. We agreed to 25%.
It is estimated in the fund balance is estimated to be 51.6% or approximately 27.632 million in unassigned fund balance.
And now take
that is an
25%
estimate.
off of
That is
that.
an estimate.
Now you take
25%.
half of that off, because we got 50%, y'all's policy's 25, so you divide that in by half.
so that's so how much real money you have.
13.5 million.
No, that is unassigned. That is unassigned money. 27.632 $2.632 million.
Is that allowing for our 25%? We have to keep in?
That's unassigned fund balance. That's not allowed, no.
No.
That's at 51%, 0.6% of the budget is $27.632 million.
If you half that number, that gives you 25% left in there.
Right.
So that
cut
tells you about how
number
much money do we
in
really
half.
have in fund balance, Lori?
About, what, 13.8?
If you cut
13
it,
million.
if you cut it in half, you
If you
have
cut it in half.
13.8 left.
Yeah, that's
My
about what
God.
it is.
And that
We'd never
25,
want to do that in one lick. That would affect our credit rating, you know.
Oh, yeah, you can't do that.
Well, it wouldn't cost 13 million to do what Mr.
Yeah,
Tate's
I
know what you're
suggesting.
saying.
Right,
Yeah.
It's
right.
all I'm suggesting is how do you go to the taxpayers and say, we're upping your mill rate? Well, why do you have $31 million sitting in the bank and you're going to up my taxes? Like, use the money you have before, like, that's all I'm suggesting. It's just a thought, again, pardon my inexperience.
no, that's not, I've worked that for 8 years and got shot down every time, you know. We're gonna raise people's taxes 5 meals, and
And the architect fee would be for the plan design, would be a one-time expenditure for your plans. Now, it would be, you know, if you have to separate the contract, what you're gonna contract with them for, you know, you got plan design, and can you separate plan design and bid? I don't know. I don't know that. We'll have to research that for them to carry it through the bid process.
And typically, we appropriate fund balance for something like that, but then when we go borrow the money, we repay
Reimburse
ourselves.
ourselves back.
Yeah, that's the typical pattern has been,
That would make a lot more sense to me.
is to appropriate fund balance and then repay ourselves when the
Absolutely.
loan
They say,
goes
sir, you
through.
got, you hold 60% of the cards, so I don't know.
so we're ignoring
I'm
the
gonna vote no anyway, it don't matter.
Absolutely. But
So let's just move on
I
from
don't vote
that.
on the motion. So if we do this,
You'll make
the
a motion,
referendum's
would you?
dead, right? We're not taking it to referendum.
This is just a start.
That'll be for, the referendum can only happen in even number of years, so it'll happen with next year's election for the referendum.
Would it
So
go-
my suggestion was to get the plans drawn, do the background information, so when you sell the referendum, or here's what we're selling the referendum on, this is what it's to pay for.
You're talking
Help
about a
pay
solid
for it.
plan.
Yeah,
And
so
what-
it's
and
solid,
financing,
at least.
we need
something
that.
And if the referendum fails, then what? You
Then
gonna
I
leave
don't
them in
know.
old high school for the next 52 years?
If that's what the people want, Ronnie, give it to them. That's representative government,
I
man.
think that's why I was elected, to have these tough votes.
No, you're elected to spend all this money.
You've never, taxes never been raised since you've been on this board.
What?
Taxes ain't been
Oh,
raised.
absolutely.
What, 1
2 years ago, we went from 34.9 to 37. Ronnie, you're
It
forgetting.
stayed revenue neutral.
It's revenue neutral. That was when we had the last rebound. And that was revenue neutral. That wasn't a tax increase.
But if it goes from 34.9 to 37, isn't that tax?
But it's revenue neutral, Paul. That's for the
Anyway,
value of the
go, Jimmy. I'm
land.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No.
Everybody's getting,
So again, I'm just gonna make my call. I think it'd be good to have a solid plans. If the referendum, again, if it passes, I think there's other means versus just paying for it immediately up front and balancing it all on.
But you gotta assume the referendum's gonna fail, Mr. Chairman, then what?
Well, if it does.
Cross that bridge when you come to it.
Cross that bridge when you get there, then maybe then you have to balance it on the backside of the law. That's what you do then, so.
Ronnie's been getting his name on that board for 20 years.
Josh, where are you staying with this?
I just feel like it's hard for me to raise that alarm with that much money sitting in the bank. Like I said, we made a discussion about 25% as a gentleman's agreement or a contingency with other commissioners, and to me, it's just hard to go tell my grandmother that we're upping her property taxes, and she's gonna look at the bank and say, well, I just have a hard time selling that, especially at Otto right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
What did 1 penny give us? Lori? It was 1 penny.
Where do you live?
I live in Otto.
1 penny gets you
I wouldn't go wrong
$800,000.
with
We all know clearly where I
You made the
stand.
best speech, so.
We're in a quandary here.
But I still think I still think you need to move on with the plan. All
Yeah.
keeps talking about the plan.
I agree.
Let's put it together. Let's put this plan together. I don't know how it's gonna cost. I hope the end result of the plan, how you're gonna finance it, is it we get a new high school.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more.
And if the people of Macon County want it, let's do it, Gary. Let's build the best thing we can. But let's don't ram something down everybody's throat just because we want a new seat at the football
Ramming
stadium.
nothing down the throat.
So I guess,
Should we at the same time look at how much it's gonna cost to renovate the current structure? The football field, the fine
If-
arts, the main building, the gym.
I think that ought to be an option, absolutely. What,
So do we pay
We've
for
done
too?
that.
Do we pay for that?
where's
too?
it at, Ronnie?
Well, we had those numbers.
Well, where's it at? I've not
was
seen those numbers, Ronnie. I've
It
been
was
here
going to
9
be more
years.
than the high school. I knew it at that time.
Well, where are the numbers, Ronnie?
I don't know where they, whatever happened to all that.
I've never seen them, and
The
I've been
fine
here
arts
9
bill was-
years, and I've harped
Fine
on
arts
that.
bill was going to be, I forget, it was going to be cheaper to tear it down and rebuild it.
It's- We do everything on emotion, we don't do anything on facts.
Like, yeah, let's get another National Guard Army up there. That'd be good.
Let's move it into a progress forward. Let's don't just stalemate here.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. Just figuring out how we go for that.
Appropriate some funds to get a solid plan or options or whatever, Dr. Baldwin.
We have a lot of other things on the agenda.
If it's not pardon me, but if it's not if we're talking about doing it out of the fund balance, that's not something that we would have to.
You don't
we
have to
can
vote
do
on
that
tonight,
after we
yeah.
get a quote from the architect on what a contract for a set of plans would look like. We don't have to nail that in stone to be able to have a budget ordinance.
No, not at all.
FY22 budget
Yeah.
forward.
If y'all all have the consensus to take fund balance to hire an architect,
I
then
will,
that's not a part of budget ordinance.
I will add to what Manager Rowland said. I mean, that was one firm with one opinion, and that was all conceptual, and it was, it cost nothing. Like, I'm sure there are many other firms that are willing to, we put it out for bid, we accept prices. Look, I'd like to see other options. Mr. Shields, we love that concept, but there's more than that. There's more than just that company. I'm sure they're the preferred vendor, but, I want to put it out there and keep them honest, Like, I want to see other bids.
Yeah, and what you're saying, Josh, like in North Carolina, general statutes, they just got with Novus and this construction company and presented something. Other companies could present ideas, but at the end of the day, we have to advertise and do a request for qualifications. Architectural services in the state of North Carolina are qualified-based selections. So unfortunately, well, maybe you're talking about price for a new school, but the way the process would work is we would advertise, we would rank the firms based on qualifications. Whoever's the best ranking, then we negotiate a contract price. Does that make sense?
And so you
But yeah,
as a liaison will sit on that committee, just like we did
To
with the
rank
middle
them,
school.
yeah.
So
You would be a
will
part of
see
that
the best
ranking.
architects
right.
from all across the southeast that are going to bid on that project.
But yeah, like you're saying, there's nothing wrong if, like we're working with SGA and Armor right now on Macon Middle renovations. If we wanted to ask them, hey, what's your conceptual idea? Again,
That's all I'm saying.
we can ask for that, but at the end of the day, when we finally pick an architect, it has to be on their qualifications. So I know you're new on the board, so
Thank you
just
for
trying
that.
to share that knowledge, because it's different. Because most things you think you go out and get a bid and that's your best price, you go with that, but it's really strange on architects, you have to do it on qualifications. Then they tell you, okay, we'll do it for 8% of the contract or, whatever, 6% of the contract, so.
I'd like to put something in the motion to move it on towards a workable plan. If the next step is getting the architectural piece in here and us to develop a plan, I'd like to put that in a motion. Let's move it on. Let's see. We don't know what the end result. We looked at one group, and but if you go to the architecture plan, let's give some people with understanding of what we're trying to put together here an opportunity to come and show us what options we have.
I 100% agree. I think the big discussion now is, do we fund that through the mill rate or do we fund that through the fund balance?
In my opinion, my mind was on the fund balance, not through the millage rate. My mind was on the millage rate's going to have to come if you get that fund balance.
If you borrow the 90 million, yes.
Yeah, it's going to have to come down the road if we choose to go that way. But how are you going to pay this now if it's the fund balance? Let's go. Let's put something out here, because people need to know. I've had a conversation with a number of people. I'm not sure they believe that we've got the guts to pull this thing and move it on.
I mean, I'll second that if that's a motion, but I mean, does there have to be an amount that we have to appropriate?
No, the motion would be to put out an
We got a
RFQ
motion and a
for
second on the
architectural
floor.
services.
Okay.
for
What's the
architectural
motion?
plan design.
Put
Let's
out,
put out a bid for architectural services for a new high school.
yeah,
That's it?
that's my motion.
That's it?
We'll decide how to pay for it. and
Let's see if
it'll
he
come out
added
of
something to
fund
it.
balance.
What was it, John? What, I just.
I understood it as it's a motion to advertise to bid for architectural services for a new Franklin High School.
That's my
Plan
motion.
design only.
Plan design
We're not
only.
paying to carry it
That's one of
through
a
bid
plan.
process. Just get the plan.
To me, that's moving forward.
Would that include just say, hey, design this new high school or explore options in improving and make Franklin High School?
I think
I know you,
Paul, I'm sorry, I think we've surpassed that. I think we've all decided to keep it on the campus location.
oh, keep it on the campus, absolutely.
And then looking at how we handle that, just maybe having somebody else look at it.
Yeah, it'd be difficult.
I think in answering Paul's question, under, I'm gonna say concept 2, there's a pro and con. If we start on the east end of that campus, there's less disruption for the students. One day, they'll go into the east side of the campus and go to class. We don't have all this disruption. And that's the pro and con of it, and it's in our discussion. But the concept 2, I can only speak about the concept 2. And concept 1, but concept 2 was less disruption for the academics, less disruptive for the students, more safety and everything. Anything else, Dr. Ball? It was a way to do
But the
it.
reality is, Mr. Chairman, we're just kicking the football again. We're just punting her down the road.
I feel like we're moving forward.
This should be 2023 now, right, Lori, before it can come back up?
Yeah, if you don't do a tax increase
Yeah,
now, you
so
can
it's
only
two-
set your millage rate once a year.
Yeah,
in
you
your
once a year,
budget.
so it's 2023 before you'd ever see it again, and it'll be the same thing then. So, get ready to stay in your high school for a while.
Can I abstain on all these votes to save my nose, or do I have to vote on it?
You got to vote.
Oh.
So you want to comment on this motion that's on the floor, and we'll move on to the next one.
Mr. Chairman,
Seconded.
where's your suggestion about the millage rate?
Well, let's take this. Let's at least move forward with the plans. We're good.
And then come out of fund balance, is that
Well,
what?
we haven't decided how we're going to pay for it yet, but it will. Yes.
Okay.
Any comments on this motion before we move forward? All in favor signify by saying aye. Raise your hand. 3,
I mean,
4.
I'm,
All opposed signify by raising your hand.
Yeah, picking an
Commissioner
architect
With a
just
note that
costs
Ronnie
us
Bill
to add
said
in
we're
the
kicking the
paper.
football, we're punting the ball again.
There's no money at this point, that architect selection's just an
Put her
add
down
in the
the road.
paper
Now,
and
if this
staff
budget,
time.
if the budget, we're by default in approving the budget on June 8th, saying we're gonna take the money for the architectural services out of fund balance.
We got other things to talk about. though.
Well,
Because. if
they
we-
have to take action later.
Right,
You
but
can't.
we can't go back at.
You can't go
after
back and
June
adjust
8th
the
say,
millage
We're gonna
rate.
raise the millage
No.
rate. So,
we don't need to raise the millage rate.
All right. Now let's have that.
This is the only shot you get. This is the one shot we had. Now here's gonna go by us. You'll not see a high school.
Right.
10 years.
I'll have to disagree. I disagree too.
I don't disagree, I know.
We're still having this discussion right now. Lori, I haven't brought this up yet because I wanted to see how this school conversation was going to go. There was not a cost of living increase for our Macon County employees.
Correct.
What is a 2% cost of living?
About 400,000.
Okay. I would personally like to see that paid for. I would personally like us to see some additional funds put in for our payroll study.
Is that the Gallagher?
Well, just for, I know Ronnie
the
had
results
brought.
of that.
Yeah, just, so we've got 1.2 million in the budget, which covers about 6%, right? So Gallagher told us 7 to 9% on average. So if you took that up to 9%, say worst case scenario, that would be 1.8 million. 2% COLA gets you to 2.2 million. So we're about
That's
a
my
million
point.
shy.
That's what.
We're about a
Okay.
million shy, which is what, 1 1/4 pennies on the tax rate.
So Paul, you're shaking your head, so you don't think our employees deserve a 2% COLA on the year?
Oh, I
or
think
you-
absolutely, but we're looking at 6% now.
for certain positions, but not everybody.
across
Yeah.
average. Some will be more than 6, some will be less than
Right.
6.
Do
They'll
you
all
not
be
think
over
we should?
2%.
Some could be zero.
Yeah, so a
Some
lot
could
of,
be zero.
If it's fair,
Some could be zero.
but if at least we're addressing payroll,
Right.
you know,
Okay. Okay.
and that'll be through when we're appropriating 1 point something million now for employee raises.
2 million to be implemented following completion of the Gallagher study in late summer.
And, no, I was shaking my
That
head,
does
let's
not
don't throw it.
include- that
I'm
does
not
not
in favor
include
of
the COLA.
raising a millage rate plus that.
I
No.
understand, I know where you stand on tax increases.
You can only bleed so
That's
much.
clear, that's clear.
You can only bleed so much out of the people.
so we got other things too, Mr. Chairman. If you're thinking about the COLA, we still have the school request of 1.6. We still have some of these other things that affects communities. We still not talked about the library in Nantahala. So we have several projects that's really pending that are so important. So
The thing about the schools, they just received $15 million. And that's why, you know, they've got the money there. It's not like we're neglecting them. They've got the money.
Yeah, but
They've got to decide how to spend it, but it's sitting in the account, you know.
say that again. I missed that.
So this ESSER money, they just received, how much was it? Over the past 2 years, almost $15 million. Am I wrong in saying that? So
Yeah, we got, I think we have 7, we got a drop within the last 2 weeks of 7 million and 4 million. So we have 11 million in the last 2 weeks.
I just like to see a little
The
higher.
ESSER 3 will be 10.5 though, total.
Total, yeah, that 7 million is, no, 7 million is what we got right now. That's half of the total.
So about 14, 15.
We'll have about 15 million when it's all said and done. We have 7 million within the last 2 weeks. We received 7 million.
I don't doubt that you need it. I mean, it's hard to sympathize when you just receive $15 million, you know, it's sitting
look,
there, you know.
We didn't know in February we were getting a penny.
Yeah, so that's my
Magic
only,
money.
you know, it's
Magic
not like
money.
they're not getting it, so.
How do you feel about putting that reoccurring cost, Ms. Baldwin?
Well, I don't know how we're going to address COVID without a significant part of that being recurring for at least until 2024, December 2024. At that point, you know, I think when we hire folks, they've got to understand it's for a 3-year contract at the most. And I think that's doable in many of those positions, but a lot of that depends on what the state does with mental health and school nurses. I mean, we may,
Yeah,
school
Medicaid
nurses may fall
expansion
under
should
our umbrella.
pass.
There's 2 bills right now that they're wanting to put a school nurse in every school. I mean,
With no money.
they said it's going to be a.
Well, they'll probably say use your ESSER money to put those school nurses in.
But then that doesn't last, but for, like you said, 3 years, so you gotta come back.
But if you could, and you mentioned, Dr. Baldwin, like a lot of the capital needs, and so if we could use and knock out use this funding like we're saying with the ESSER money to knock out a lot of these capital needs, could we then maybe move, like the chairman was saying, move some money from the annual capital outlay appropriation from at 1.15, maybe take that to 700,000 and move that 400,000 into operating and allow you, knowing that would be a move for the foreseeable future, a permanent move for the foreseeable future that would allow you to put where you need it in operating and use this ESSER money, like Josh was saying, to knock out a bunch of these capital needs, thereby reducing the reliance on the county money for capital.
So here's the problem with some of that though, and that is the East Franklin project was denied. We're going to reapply. I don't know what they'll let us use that ESSER money towards capital, because how are they going to read our reasoning, and will they apply those our reasoning to those 3 issues guidelines that they identified? You know, it'd be hard for me to say that how they'll approve those capital projects.
Dr. Ball, that goes back to what I was saying earlier, though. If we offer you the flexibility, you use those monies how you can, then we offer you the flexibility with our funds. Because you don't know how you can use those. But our funds are a little bit more flexible. The difference is that we understand it's a little bit of a shell game, and that we're probably going to be looking into some recurring costs at the county level 3 to 4 years down the road when this happens. But that's what I was trying to say earlier. You guys are just a lot more clearly stating that than I was.
Yeah, but I think we will need to agree on like a number. Like if we're going to say we're going to move 400,000 from capital into operating, then we're going to have to be good with that and know that capital is going to go to 1.15 million minus 400,000, 750, and our capital outlay appropriation is going to be at 750,000, and your operating costs, your operating appropriation is going to increase by that 450.
Well, what I would say to that is that I think that's doable until 2024, and from that point on, you know, I don't know what
it hits a roadblock.
Yeah.
And like you said, if you did operating expenses with that extra money, you got to have them on 3-year contract. But you know, as far as county money, like the chairman was saying, that'll give you the flexibility there.
We could address the entire operations request out of ESSER. I'm pretty confident that we can do that based on those 3. I think it'd be easier for us to address those 3 guidelines through operations than it would be for capital. Because that's what we ran into with, that's the only thing they denied out of our budget request was those 6 classrooms at East Franklin. I think we can reapply and still have that available to us, but we're going to have to be a little bit more specific on how that 6 classroom addition is going to address learning loss and coding.
When did they turn us down on that?
Josh got that information within the last 10 days, maybe, something like that.
Ms. Love, know that? The reason I'm asking, we got another meeting in July.
We will have reapplied and probably have word back on the reapplication by the next time we meet.
We can't swear we're going to get we're not going to be denied again, is that right?
No, we can't. No, I do conversations that I've had with the DPI rep since then, and I had conversation with Ms. McMahon yesterday about specifically how those 6 classrooms could address their space issues. You know, the classrooms at East Franklin are so small, you can't socially distance.
We're talking about 3.750.
Yeah, and that was based on what we spent at South Macon for those 6 classrooms. You know, that was 3, so we bumped it to 375. But after not listening to the fire department, we probably didn't go high enough on that.
Not at $400 a square foot.
No.
Well, Cartuca J, or South Macon was 350.
Yeah.
And that was in when? 18 years ago?
Well, that was $3 million, and so I budgeted 375 for the 6 classrooms at East Franklin, but it probably wasn't enough.
Oh, I mean, but how could you know right now?
Yeah.
I mean,
But that was skew flexibility and they went failing to do.
But you know what?
I won't be neutral.
The thing too, though, is that in that discussion, then you go back to the high school. What's it going to cost to repair the high school when you start going in there?
You can't rid that high school. The high school is, we decided a long time ago, is not. We put a lot of money in the high school with QVAT, QZAB and QSCAB or whatever it was. You know, we put bathrooms in the gym, which wasn't there. We redone the main building electrical the best we could. We spent a lot of money there and really didn't touch it. Spent millions and didn't touch it. You know that.
There's copper plumbing.
Oh yeah.
And all that.
It's
wiring.
Asbestos, we took the asbestos.
Well, I'm ready to go eat supper.
They're doing asbestos renovation on that one, right?
Huh? Didn't know it was going to be here all that.
Oh, it ain't 7:30. Gunsmoke don't even come.
I ain't got anywhere to go, but I do.
Gotta go home. Gotta go to work. I'm gonna have to be there at 5:30 in the morning. We'll spend everything we can.
I know we've been here a long time. Mr. Manager, let me ask you a question. What I'm noodling through my mind here. If we raise the property tax rate to 0.40, which would be a 2.5 cent increase, that would be roughly 1.6, about a $2 million increase, Lori. Could we move an additional 800,000 into your sheriff's department or pay plan?
Pay plan study.
Conversation, because Lori just said it's probably going to take $2 million. We can give 30,000 to the library, and then I recommend we put the rest into a building fund for the new high school. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Is the 2% COLA in there as well, or just the?
I think that y'all determine that when you do your payroll. I'm up to y'all on that. I just heard what you said on your 2.2 million. I'm asking, I'm just throwing the nugget out there. I'm asking. So.
Okay, so.
Chairman, I think that's
what's his?
If you wanted to do a 2% COLA, basically July 1, plus the 9% on the pay plan, that at that average number, that would take 1.25 pennies on the tax rate. Which is $1 million. So you're saying if you raise it 2.5 pennies, you'd gain another $1 million.
That you would start your. I know it's 1 out of 90, but then that at least sets you forward on towards your referendum once you start back.
That would at least put the referendum at a maybe a 10% chance of passing, but if it don't pass, then it won't be so hard. If you are going to continue with the school, it would be better than hitting the referendum all at once. And plus, I would also recommend, Mr. Chairman, if this is the way we're going, is we take a portion of that money and increase our contingency fund for some of these projects that we've talked about. That's minor, in comparison. That we have come up in the middle of the year that we always will have, but I would increase the contingency out of some of that if that should pass, Mr. Manager. What do you think?
3, y'all think it's a good idea? I think it's a great idea.
Love it.
Okay, so just to recap, 2 cents.
2.5.
I'm sorry, 2.5 cents. It's us about $2 million. No. Sorry, I'm confusing myself.
Yes, it does. You said 800,000 for a penny.
In her credit, she's the only one that can
1.6, another half's 400,000.
Okay, it is 2 million. Sorry, I'm just like my brain's fried. So 2 million. Okay. So if we did 400K for a 2% COLA, 800. 600,000 to get us to 1.8 on the pay study. Okay. That's $1 million.
That is, in my opinion, the most important thing Macon County's done. That's even more important than the high school. We've got to take care of our
What's the other $1
employees.
million then?
We're not going to have a county left.
Exactly
Keep
right.
losing them.
What's the other $1 million go to? If
I
we've
was
got
suggesting just going ahead and set it aside towards our building.
We've got
Architect, whatever it might
you
be.
got whatever it is going to be at the
I hear you on the
National Guard Armory. It's got to be the building. We got to finish at Nantahala. We got several projects. We've got some very small projects, community projects to go along with that. So that's really not, if we put that in contingency, it always makes it easier when we have these requests, whether it be, from the community fund pool, whatever it is.
And speaking of that, I think it would be good. We do have, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
We do have numerous projects, like the building at Nantahala. We need to settle on, is that building going to be used for a community center / library, or is the library going somewhere else and we're going to renovate that in this year? Are we going to still do the National Guard Armory in this year? But we need to pick out a few, one of those at least.
Prioritize.
That we prioritize those. Hey, we're going to do this one this fiscal year, this one next fiscal year, and this one 3 years from now. But just so we can have some idea of how we can lay that money out.
Well, you worked on that.
Go back to what Mr. Higgins talked about. This is a plan that we need to put out here for the next 3 to 5 years.
I'm trying to give you the flexibility to do that. Yes, sir. Mr. Young, go ahead.
it's what gets me. I mean, you talk about a plan. Where's the plan? Like, what is the plan? Like, here we're talking about spending a couple million more dollars. Like, my business has a plan, and like, I try to, it never works perfectly, but like, what's the plan right there? Like, we're spending a couple more $1 million raising the mill rate again. I say again, we'll have to raise it again. So there's 2 mill rate increases back to back. Like, I think we just need to stop for a minute. Like, I've sat on this board, like, I don't like people coming to this board and begging me for money throughout the year. Like, I think there needs to be a point in time where the Cowee school, like, this stuff gets budgeted. And all of a sudden, when they come to us, we say, look, these expenditures are for dire needs, and the rest of that, we're going to budget that next year. And, like, I just think we're just throwing so much money really fast.
Josh.
Well, what I'm saying is, I don't want to keep adding to the contingency so people keep coming and we just throw them little tidbits. I feel like I sit here and people walk up and I say, that's a good story. Let's give you, I want a plan. Like, I don't feel like it's my money to give away. So my position is let's not halfway do this. If we're going to do it, let's do it. If we're not, let's not. But we're going to go halfway there and just kind of hope the referendum passes. But if it doesn't pass, then we're going to go ahead and raise the mill rate anyways. But like, I just want to get together.
I don't disagree with you saying at all in the schools. I'm worried about them and how we're going to afford that, how we're going to afford this pay plan. I don't think 1.2, 1.3 million is going to touch it. I'm more concerned about that and giving us the flexibility there to handle that. And I also think our employees deserve the 2% COLA. I mean, look at what gas is doing.
There's no doubt employees are underpaid.
We can't afford it with where we are now, so that's just what I'm suggesting. To give us some funds to be able to handle that, and also give us a little bit of additional funding to be able to handle SCC, be able to handle Nantahala.
If you're telling me it's 100 employees, I support our local EMS. They're way underpaid, but I just can't support it just to raise it and stick it in the bank and say, whenever rainy day arises, we fund it. I mean, that's my only opposition.
Well, listen to what I suggested, Josh. It's the $2 million, approximately $2 million. What's going to come out of that? How much is going to a COLA?
About 400,000. I'd have to run the exact number.
I'd recommend another 600 to go towards the pay study. So that's 1 million. So that leaves 1 million left. And I suggested we use that to pay for SCC. 30,000 to the library.
So what's the SCC? I'm sorry, I might have missed that.
We had 25,000 for Nikwasi and 10,000 for Cowee as well, if y'all are going to do that.
We haven't paid for that yet. We've agreed to do it, but we haven't paid for it yet. So.
And there's operating costs with SCC as well. Once those renovations happen,
Just for 45.
then you're going to be committed to the operating expenses, which of course you wouldn't want to take out of fund
You
balance.
won't have much left out of that, as just for county needs.
I don't know. That's where I was going. It wasn't necessarily for the school.
It ain't to build a slush fund, I don't think.
So the tax rate, the proposed is, it would go to 40 cent even.
I'm just throwing it
We're
out
at
there. I was
37.
looking for
We're like at
feedback on this. I know where Paul stands on
37.47.
Yeah.
So
We're
40,
at 37
47.
It's just throwing millage rates around.
So 40
if
cent
we raise it
even,
2.5 cents.
2.53. 2.53 would just get you to 40 cent even. That's what I was asking. That was kind of thrown out 40 cent and then 2.5. But just to clarify, if you want to get to 40 even, it's the 2.53. I don't want to mess it up.
Back to my point, the Franklin High School is important. Everything we do in the county is important. But if we don't take care of our employees here, we're not going to have. I mean, look at how many positions they have open. How many does DSS have open now?
They have 11.
EMS has
7. Robbie's got
Health
13 or
department.
maybe 14.
Health department jobs are in the same boat. There's so many vacancies across DSS, health,
And
EMS.
these people are just like Robbie's folks. I mean, they're good folks, but they're there to make a living. So if you don't take care of them,
I just want to see a plan.
And what will happen, Josh, with this pay study that we're in the midst of, whenever we get it finalized late summer, that will be brought back to you as the commissioners to give the final approval. So we've got money earmarked in the budget, but y'all will ultimately have the final approval. That will say, hey, it's going to cost X number of dollars. This is what we're doing, and y'all will bless it or deny it.
And I'll support that. I do think they're underpaid. sorry.
No, we're doing this. That's why you're making big bucks sitting up here.
I don't make these decisions lightly, you know, it's hard. But it won't be something on me like more.
It's 2.5 right now.
Is a little strong.
Let's wrap it up, guys.
And y'all need to circle back around. Don't forget about the library, Nikwasi and Cowee. That's 30,000, 25,000, 10,000.
73, 4.
Do we want those three in the budget or not? You know, you're looking at $65,000.
Well, if the tax increase goes through, I would recommend taking out a contingency. Just adding that to contingency. That'd be the simplest, right?
I'm talking adding what to?
Add what?
I'm talking about, I guess, with
If the
the,
tax increase goes through, increase the contingency in this
yeah,
budget.
but I'm saying, do you want to fund the library and Nikwasi and Cowee? That would be funded out of the tax increase.
65.
$65,000 for the three pieces.
And none of that will be reoccurring.
The library's recurring.
The library be reoccurring, yes.
The Wells of one time, Nikwasi, I
Is
guess it
one
just
time.
depends if you're going to continue to support that or. I'm just trying to get my notes straight.
Sure.
If I've got to bring y'all an ordinance Tuesday night, I just need to make sure I
Brian will be.
my brain is already fried, so I'm
So,
just.
Mr. Chairman, what are you looking for?
That's just my suggestion. I think it's the intelligent, responsible way to lead.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make,
What's going to happen, Ronnie, is we're going to probably get that payroll study back. We're not going to give our employees 2% COLA. It's going to come out to $2+ million, and we're going to be hung there diving back into fund balance.
and it's not going to be having enough money.
We're all gonna have
That's
it.
what I've always said. That's my big thing. So I'll make the motion that we raise the millage rate 2.53 cents to make it even 40 cents in this in the upcoming budget.
I say.
Got a motion and a second. Any further thoughts?
My position is just because I want to see a plan in place and I want to know where that money's going. It's nothing personal.
We'll do it right now.
If you can show me on paper where this money
I
goes.
think we said it 3 times.
Lori, let me see if I get this right. 400,000 is going to 2% COLA for all county employees.
Yes,
600,000 is going to be added to the
pay study
to
budget.
the pay study budget, which will increase it to
About
So why does it,
about 1.8, a little over 1.8.
we didn't
1.8.
already hire the pay study budget? It just,
We've already hired them, but once they say, okay, county positions need 7 or 9%, then that's the cost. We'll have to bump everybody's salaries up to the proper level.
See, what we had left.
I agree with that.
What we had left in the budget at a flat tax rate, we could only, they're saying you're going to be somewhere between 7 to 9% below market on average. We only had enough to earmark 6%. So what Lori's saying, by adding that 600,000, that brings that 6% to 9%, which is the top end of where they said we were short, rather than being 1% less than the bottom end. We'll be at the top of what.
So far, I'm in full support.
So that's 1 million of the 2
Of the 2
million.
million.
And the other million, I was recommending we give the library the 30,000, whatever y'all tell me to add to contingency, and then I was recommending we put the rest towards the SCC renovation.
And the fire building, at the fire
Yes.
training facility.
Yes.
We don't know what that's going to be.
That's what bothers me. Like, we don't know what that's going to be. Like, how do we?
Well, we've got numbers,
Like, the first $1 million, I'm good for it. Second $1 million,
but it's either an hour later, so.
But gosh, there is a compilation. Jack Morgan did it, compiled it, what it would cost to renovate the National Guard Armory. There is that information.
I just can't walk out of here and look.
2 point something.
Yeah, no, I understand.
I don't know why I spent $1 million on just,
Comment. Derek, we gave you a charge this year. Flat tax, do us a budget. Every year I see the same thing. I've been here 9 years. We charge him with giving us a budget. He does an excellent job. His team brings it in here, and then we all have these personal wants. We blow it all to pieces. We charged him to do it with no tax increase, and here we are tonight looking at raising property taxes to over 2 mills. We blow this budget all to pieces. There's no need even going through this budgeting process. We should approve every expenditure as it happens. We need more in contingency because we can't stay within a budget. We can't forecast a year down the road what our expenditures are going to be. So the budgeting process is really a moot point and a waste of exercise. You know, there's really no need going through this little song and dance, but here we are, we're going to budget again.
Your budget is a starting point, right? That's where we're at now, not what we need.
And if we individually didn't have all these little personal wants and, you know, I think we could stay within the charge that we gave the county manager. I appreciate the budget y'all presented. I would gladly support it, but I can't support this.
Call the question, Mr. Chairman.
All in favor?
Can I clear
Unless there's something, sir, go ahead.
So we have, okay, we're gonna do it, $2 million.
2.5.
It's 2.53 cents.
To gain us about $2 million, 2.53 cents, 400,000 toward a 2% COLA, 600,000 towards raising the amount
study.
earmarked for the pay study from 6% to 9%.
Right.
Then you have $1 million, and out of that you want to fund the library at $30,000 recurring, the Nikwasi Initiative at $25,000.
It's one time.
Right, that's one time.
Yeah.
The Nikwasi Initiative at $25,000. The Cowee School at $10,000, which is also one time, and then put the remainder
Balance in contingency.
Well, or a school fund, as a chairman, we can certainly put that into that.
I would put 100% of it into the paying for that school plan.
That's exactly right.
So the remainder, after that, the remainder goes into
the new high school fund.
New high school fund.
Well, how about this? Sorry. We put it in contingency for now until we see what the pay study number actually is, just in case we need a little more. I mean, are y'all agreeable to that?
That's fair.
And once we get the final pay study numbers and we know it's definitely going to cost X number of dollars, if we have to pull a little bit out of contingency, it's there, then what's remaining, we can transfer it over to the school capital fund. Is that agreeable?
Agreeable.
Okay. With contingency, Josh, Derek and I don't have the capability to touch contingency. Only you as commissioners have that authority. So it sounds like, yeah, you're throwing a lot in contingency, but we can't touch
it or move it.
It has to require board approval, so.
How much do we have left out of contingency this year, sir?
Not a lot.
We didn't have a lot. We had, what, 60,000 left?
No, maybe 30.
37.
About 30.
So we've timed it pretty well.
All in favor, raise your hand, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
3-2.
We'll take this. Did you get all that?
Just to recap on.
Tammy, are we going to even say hello to Tammy?
Say hello to Tammy. She's helping us out. She's got smoke coming off this keyboard over here.
Tammy, did you get off that?
I think she goes on Facebook.
Welcome, Tammy. It's good to see you here.
Can we get a motion to adjourn?
Are we going to adjourn till next Tuesday?
We will adjourn.
We'll adjourn.
Our public hearing is still scheduled for,
Several years ago.
and you'll advertise that,
Motion by
sir?
Commissioner Young,
We're already advertised.
second by Commissioner Higgins. Gosh. All in favor?
Aye.
The county bought some property on
Well, politicians got money.
Road or something.